This video is brought to you by friend of the channel Squarespace. Stick around to learn more about them, as well as a special offer they're making available through my channel.
Your camera's off-center, by the way, Alanah.
Yeah, it's nothing I can...
Like, you're leaving room for like thumbnail images on the left there.
I can fucking do about it, all right? Just, like, I'm having a day, okay? It is what it is.
All right, it's fine.
Leave me alone.
It's fine. There's dog. It's all good.
So we're just going to ask you to like put images up there throughout the podcast. That could be the place where we show gameplay footage.
Go
right
for
there.
it.
There you go. Very nice.
Banjo has to move back, and that's just his.
Hey, Banjo, can you come here?
Spot.
Oh, good
Yeah.
boy. Good boy.
Oh my goodness.
What a good dog.
What a good boy.
That is a great way to start a podcast.
I was going to say, I was just going to roll straight in.
If you like dogs, everyone, you like dogs.
Hang on.
Can
you speak?
Equals one pat
speak?
for Banjo.
He just wants me to scratch his butt. He can talk on command, but he said, I'd prefer if you rub my butt, please. So.
Yeah.
Who am I to say no? Who am I to say no?
Quid pro quo.
Yeah.
Clarice.
Easy there, comment section. Easy there, okay?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Friends of a Second podcast. Podcast every other week featuring some pals talking about video games. And after last week's episode where we didn't really talk about games a lot, this week it's a packed episode. Not only do we have a great interview with Cabel Sasser, who's the co-founder of Panic, and Lucas Pope, game developer you'll know from games like Papers, Please, and his latest one, which Ralph, you have played, and the name escapes me because I don't have a play date. Was it
Mars After Midnight?
Mars After Midnight. You have actually sold me. I was looking at buying.
It's super fun, super weird. Yep, totally.
Yeah, it's a really good conversation to hear about like how they made the Playdate and stuff, because it's just been such a weird, cool device and just thing in the industry. So yeah, that was good stuff.
Them creating that device feels like, you know, the Gromit gif of him putting the track when he's on the little train.
Oh yeah,
that's what that felt like, but in a fun way, and there's not some kind of murderous penguin after them.
I actually forgot that it was teenage engineering design. Man. Like that was like, oh, that's right, it was that. And now that I see it, I'm like, it does look like it's that so rabbit cool. AI.
What are you talking about?
So you know the Playdate, right? Have you heard of this before?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But teenage engineering, have you heard of them before? Okay, so they're like a design company that make mainly audio stuff. So like,
or like an audio interface. You want like an audio interface that looks so cool.
They're just like and it's the kind of thing where you see it and you're like, I want it. What is it? You know what I mean? Like you don't even know what it is, but it looks so cool that you want to buy it. Anyway, they have this very like specific design ethos and style, and so they helped design this, and they've also helped design that rabbit AI pin that.
Oh, they did.
Oh no, the one that.
That's the one that Marcus Brownlee just skewered. That's why I made the joke that it looks like one of those AI assistants, but it actually does stuff.
That's the thing that like is like objectively terrible and pointless and
trash.
And he got criticized for reviewing it honestly.
No, that was the other AI pin. This is a different AI pin that's equally shit. And also enjoyed by special guest host Alanah Pearce.
Hi.
Hey.
I just don't think AI pins are maybe ready to be put out there in the mass market or even reviewed.
Yeah, but it's so fascinating because the first, like the one of the things that like Marcus struck on in his review was like, you shouldn't be releasing a product when it's not yet finished. And like as gamers, we're like, please continue. Tell us more about that idea.
I don't know what you mean.
But like he didn't talk about video games in his first review of the humane AI pin or whatever. But he did talk about it in this one of this like rabbit. I think it's called Rabbit R1 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he really specifically called out like there's this trend that's going on now with products where they're launching before they're ready. He specifically says happens all the time in the world of video games. And it's like, well, yeah, absolutely. It happens all the fucking time in video games. It's like it's like a standard AAA games launch at this point for a game to launch unfinished. You know, it's like the exception when it's actually done. And he even pointed to stuff like cars, you know, like cars will have promised features like the Tesla or whatever. But there's phones will always launch with like one or two flagship features that'll come a bit later. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know of any product that does it as regularly as it does in the world of video games.
No.
It's
you know, you love to see other people goofing up. You know, it's not just
it's not just us.
It's not our industry.
Oh man. Anyway, yeah.
I did like his video. Did you see the one about the treadmill that the Disney Imagineers are making?
I've seen that before.
That is so
It's
cool.
It was incredible.
But sometimes I feel like people come out with these products that like I feel like I'm never going to have. That like, do you remember? It was a tie-in to Connect, I think. It was like a projector that tied into Connect in some way and would like change the way a room looked. Yeah.
Yes.
And that just didn't ever really become a thing.
God.
Didn't the army use it?
I mean, if it exists.
I've never heard about it ever again.
HoloLens, yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like it just like never came out.
No,
hang on, no. I'm not talking about HoloLens. That was their mixed reality
thing.
Yes.
Yes, that extended the display of your TV.
Yes, and would like if it was snowy or whatever, it would like snow around the TV, and I feel like was shilling Kinect technology at the time, but it was one of the. It just never came out. It just never appeared.
Yes. Oh my God, that's like unlocked a memory in me. Yeah.
Where is it? I'm still waiting.
I'm still waiting for Milo.
What's Milo?
Miss that boy.
What's Milo? That little robot dog?
No, the little boy that Peter Molyneux made.
Molyneux boy.
Oh,
Pinocchio boy, son. We miss him. Right. He would talk. He was supposed to talk to us and answer questions and stuff.
Can't believe Bill Molyneux didn't deliver a product that he promised. That's weird.
Hey, Fable's perfect. Okay, come on now. Cut him some slack. Okay, he had one banger right out the gate, and now everything else is just he can do what he wants.
Do you guys ever see that like vest or whatever that you can put on when you're playing a game, and it would like simulate you getting punched in the guts?
Yeah.
Did you guys ever try this?
I did. I tried it at a GDC.
And how was it?
Incredibly cool. But why? Like, it's so cool at a GDC, but outside of a GDC, why would you ever want to do that? Is the problem. Yeah. And I kind of think that's a big part of the problem with like, I use VR almost every day, and people talk about like VR didn't take off. I think it's because people just love the comfort of their own living room. They don't want to be assaulted by a suit while playing a video game. And you want to be able to like sit in your own space and see your family members. It's not like VR doesn't have killer apps at this point. It totally does. It's just the staple of enjoying watching something on your TV in a room that you've decorated. I just don't think can really be replaced. Like unless any of you have Vision Pros?
Yeah.
No.
I don't have a Vision Pro. I've got the Quest 3.
Yeah, I got in. I was going to ask you what you're playing in VR because I just got back into Beat Saber in a big way.
Big into Beat Saber.
Using VR every day is big. Like that's pretty rare.
It's like almost every day.
Are you working in it or working out? Or?
I work out in it. Yeah, I use an app called Supernatural VR, which is like it's not cheap. You have a subscription on top of buying the game, but it's such good cardio. They have like 45-minute long workouts. It's just like a boxing workout, and you have different trainers that speak to you. It's like a personal virtual trainer, basically. I'm a huge fan. Like I really, really enjoy it because I hate cardio. So making a video game is the only way that I'll do it. And yeah, like you don't have to go anywhere. You just have a little space. It's great. Love it. This is how I want to consume the world. Just in this tiny little screen.
In my pod. But
in theory, the Apple Vision Pro, which I have not got because the price is insane, and because like we were just talking about, I feel like Apple like first time products are not always you don't always want to buy in on round one. Jake, how often do you use it?
I'm shaking my head for the people listening. Yeah, mine's collecting dust. It was like a Game Ranks thing. I didn't just recklessly go out and get this thing. But
worst FaceTime I've ever received, by the way.
That was horrific.
So creepy.
That was so funny to call you. I immediately called you.
The thing that got me about it is that you clearly dictated a text message to me, but it was like you were about to lay me off because you went, "Hey, got a minute to chat?" I was like,
that's it. Yeah, it comes for us all.
Yeah, it's cool for working, but even then, I realize I don't want work that much up in my face.
Yeah.
Apparently, the demand for it is totally plummeted. That they're seeing tons of returns at the apps, like the Apple stores and whatever else. No one's buying it. They've slashed production and stuff. And I'm not surprised because I kind of went through this a little bit with the Meta Quest 3 headset, where I think it's really fantastic tech, but you don't have this use case where you want to use it every single day. And it's still
what? Beat Saber. I'm Supernatural VR.
Beat Saber, of course.
Yeah, for workout, I think is really it.
Yeah, but I don't think most people don't have a use case. But then you see an Apple product, and you're like, whoa, an Apple product. I have to get this Apple product. And you get it, and you're like, okay, all right, this is a bit weird, isn't it? And there's not too much I can do with it yet. And so therefore it's like, I've got this thing now, right? And so I very much expected it would kind of go this way with Apple people discovering what it's like to have a VR headset.
Yeah.
Versus like Meta people, like we already had, because I had like Oculus and Quest 2. It's like I knew what this is, I know what it was about, and I knew what I would be able to use it for and not whatever else.
Yeah.
And I'm super happy with that device. Also, the price of that is like a fraction of what the Vision Pro. That is like, I think it's like $600 or $700 Australian dollars or something. I forget what it is in America. I don't know, like 500 something.
The Quest 3, I don't think they're even that much.
It's like 300, 400.
Yeah, I thought it was like 300. Yeah,
it's only a banana, Michael. What is it?
How much did it cost?
It's so reasonable for what it does. It really is. Like, if
you're right. They're like $500. Sorry,
500. But even that is such a reasonable price for how much that headset can do. And so when the Zuck made his video and he's like talking about how much better the thing is, and everyone's kind of roasting him, like, oh, it looks so desperate. I'm like, nah, man, he's actually right. Like, he's got a point with regards to how good how good.
I looked at it like a boat. Like I love being on a boat. That's super fun, but I don't want to own one and have to pay for the fees. Like, I just want a friend who has a boat. And I feel the exact same way about the Apple, which I still don't have, still working on Boatgate. But I feel the same way about the Apple Vision Pro, where it's like I had 2 friends who had one and I was like, great, I don't need to buy one. Like, that's all. I'll just ask them occasionally if I can have a look at it. I do not need to purchase one of those things. It's like
the weird future I saw in it, which is like, I don't know if it's like, it's probably what they want, especially like in terms of how smartphones like became a thing. But I had this weird epiphany using it where like I had like a bunch of like Discord servers up and my email and a YouTube video playing, and I was just like hyper mega online, and I was like, man, dude, there are some like people who have like Pokemon Go on like 4 phones at the same time and a YouTube video, and like they've only ever had friends in Discord. Like, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but like I think some of those people eventually are going to have some device like this where they are just like in it, and I don't want that for me. But I was like, oh man, this might eventually be something for some people in some way.
Yeah, like people can't get outside. Like, that's a great accessibility option.
That's true.
That's a good point. Yeah, and for communicating with people too, especially if like the weird, creepy faces can just become like real faces. That would help. But gaming on it, not really there yet.
It's so funny that they use the faces as a talking point in the presentation when they're so bad. Like, they're like, no, show them what the FaceTime calls look. They're gonna love this, and we're all like, oh, it's just grandma. No.
You know what they got to make them into? This is like really obscure, but they got to change the Apple Vision like profile thing into, when people would die in the Casper movie and then they would come back looking like a CGI animated version of themselves, but Casper, like when Bill Pullman dies and turns into a Casper ghost. They should do it like that. That's a really obscure reference. I'm sorry.
Very obscure reference.
Okay. Somebody out there will appreciate that. Anyway. This is the Friends podcast. Oh, wait, we already did that.
Let's hope that...
You're not even hosting this week. Get out of here.
We're well past that's right. Yeah, we're well past the cold open now. So,
Alanah, how have you been? I haven't seen you. Oh, I saw you briefly at GDC, but how are things?
Things are good. Hanging out with my dog, making video game. There's not too much going on at the moment. It's really nice. Chilling, having a good time.
Yeah, right.
Hanging out.
Are you hitting up any industry events or anything coming up soon, like Summer Game Fest, etc.?
I don't do it so much anymore. I also completely stopped previewing games. To be honest, I've been doing the same thing for 10 plus years at this point. And I'll go for like a bit. I think I just kind of can't handle it as much anymore. I think maybe after COVID, it's just a lot of people, wanting to catch up very quickly in one place. And I sort of distanced myself a little because I feel like I find it kind of overwhelming these days, unfortunately. And also stopped doing game previews entirely because they require way too much of somebody who works full time. Like, it's too hard to do outside of job and also deliver things on time. And I just felt like I kept doing it. It's too hard. But I will go and I'll say hi. But not so much these days. I'm actually really enjoying not playing games as they come out anymore either. Like, I'm still playing Dragon's Dogma 2 and having a great time. I was a huge fan of the first game. In my opinion, the second game is just the first game on crack. And it's stupid and it has plenty of stuff wrong with it, but I'm having a wonderful time. And it's really nice to just kind of be able to do that stuff slowly. Like, my goals for completing things now are personal and not work dictated, which is really nice.
For you.
It's great.
That would be so nice.
God, what's that like?
Must be nice.
I'm sorry.
That would be amazing.
It's really great. Yeah. Cause like sometimes I'll just spend a weekend playing like some old game or like replaying something, whereas I used to feel guilt about that. So yeah, it's just nice to just enjoy video games again, I think, in a weird way, consume them a little less. Having a good time. But yes, I'm looking forward to whatever comes out of Summer Game Fest. I got myself really excited by assuming that and we'll reveal more after the Xbox showcase was going to be Fable, but then the art, I was like, that's not Fable. That's not,
No,
I saw the text
COD,
before I saw the art. That's definitely a COD. And I was like, if only I had seen the art first. Such a bummer. Why would you? I don't need a whole direct for that.
I mean, I know COD is big. It's important. It's like, I don't know, just whatever. I just don't give a fuck. Like, it's just, I don't know. I get that's their moneymaker, right? And I think, and that's kind of interesting in a way because like Xbox is this kind of core gaming brand, right? And it's interested in, like your Gears of War and it's your pokey little indie titles, like your Hi-Fi Rush and your Hellblade and whatever else. And now they have to, at the same time, promote a show for Call of Duty, which I think most people who tune in for an Xbox showcase probably don't really care that much about Call of Duty because Call of Duty is its own ecosystem, totally, well, not totally, but quite separate from that broader core gaming ecosystem. So it feels somewhat uncomfortable for those two things to be side by side in that way.
It's like throwing FIFA on the end. EAFC, sorry. It's
totally
like
agree. Exactly.
And then this game that like is like a very different audience in a weird way.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like I remember COD used to be, like it was big on PlayStation, it would always be at the showcase at the E3 presentation, and then it was Microsoft for a while, but it was always the story stuff. Now for me, COD just feels like Warzone and then something else added onto it. It is some new unintelligible thing that I look at a Warzone screen now and I just get intimidated by the amount of icons on there and the menu options, and that is just why I'm just not into it anymore. It's quite a lot of COD.
I just fired up when Modern Warfare 3 came out. I essentially raw dog jumping into Warzone like with no setup, anything, and it was like applying a million screens in front of me from every season update, every DLC add-on, every pre-order bonus that I've ever had in my life, and I was like, I just like noped out of it. I couldn't do it. What is the new Call of Duty this year? What do we know what it is yet?
I think it's rumored to be Black Ops.
Black Ops, yeah.
5?
5 it would be at this point, unless they kind of did some rebooty thing. I don't know.
Because one of them didn't have a title; it was just Black Ops. But then, is it bad?
It's hard to keep
I'm
up.
Googling.
I played them all, and I'm losing track.
I have no idea.
Absolutely. Do you guys feel like? Do you guys feel as though, because we've talked a lot about like Xbox over the last little while and stuff that's going on with like non-exclusives. Here we go. Do you guys feel different about the Xbox brand today than you did like 6 months ago?
That was a good question.
A little bit.
Because like, for example, I feel exactly the same about Nintendo, feel exactly the same about PlayStation, right? And this is not saying like good or bad, right? It's just talking about like, when you think about this brand, like what it is and whatever, like has your thoughts about it changed at all?
I would say yes. I think that I used to look at them as a hardware company first and foremost, and now I look at them as a publisher, a hardware company, and a game streaming service. I think that they have become fractured and there are multiple pillars, and it's not just a hardware company anymore. And I don't think it makes sense to look at them that way. Like, I almost feel like if you're looking at them as just the hardware company you've always looked at them as, you're going to set yourself up for disappointment because you're not necessarily going to get a new Xbox announcement every 6 years, whatever, when their strategies are clearly changing. So it's like, it's not like they've abandoned that. I don't think the brand is different. It's just like now 3 things.
Well, so just to drill down into that, are you talking about Microsoft or are you talking about Xbox?
I'm talking about Xbox. Microsoft, I just think of as synonymous with Windows. But Xbox itself, I view as Game Pass / streaming or cloud. Xbox as in hardware, as in a console, and now a publisher, like a massive publisher. I think that especially now that some games are also coming to Switch or PlayStation, it's like just they are that now. You can't, they're not one-to-one in any of those landscapes anymore. And I also don't feel negatively or positively about it, but it is a shift in the way that I view that brand. I think they're bigger and have more departments.
Sure.
Yeah. I think my relationship with all of them has changed because I am more platform agnostic than I used to be as a youth. When I was growing up, it was like very much, okay, I was PC and that was the only thing I had. It was PS2 because that was the only thing I had. Xbox 360. And now it's like I'm in the very fortunate and privileged position to have everything. And honestly, I find myself just defaulting to PC. And so I think when I think of Xbox, I again just think Game Pass, day one Game Pass. But now actually, because they've got games coming out, I'm like, oh yeah, Hellblade's this year. Avowed is this year. I'm interested to see what is kind of coming from all those promises and those acquisitions made from a few years ago. So it's like, I don't think it's necessarily just Xbox. I think it's just I've changed as a person.
It's not you, it's me, Xbox.
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of am on the same level as Alanah, plus just feel like I've been waiting around a long time for something to happen. And I don't know necessarily what that means. I'm just talking about like my gut feeling.
Yes.
I'm like, there's always something like, there's something.
Mickey Mouse shows up for some reason. How do the three of you as journalists feel about
Whoa.
I'm calling you that. That's what I said, capital J.
Let's not get carried away.
Senior video producer.
Please. I'm a YouTuber, thank you very much.
Yeah.
How do the three of you as YouTubers feel about the Xbox showcase? Like, do you think that there are expectations that they have to meet? Is there a lot riding on this year? Like, or does it feel the same?
I almost feel like it's the same as last year, where it's like we're still just waiting around to see some stuff. And I don't know. I feel like at this point, and I mean, there are things that we're waiting on Sony, and like there's only so many things on the horizon there. But I feel like with Xbox, there's been a lot of titles that I've been waiting to hear more from for a very long time, almost to the point where I've forgotten. Like State of Decay 3. The other day, I was clearing out my hard drive and came across the State of Decay 3 trailer, and I went, holy shit, that's a game. What's going on with that? Fable 2. What's going on with that? We finally got a glimpse at it, but I still have no idea what to make of it.
When was the last Hollow Knight update?
Oh, well, that was last. Wasn't that last year in the last showcase?
No, it was
2 years ago.
22.
No, was it? Oh my
god, might have been.
Wow.
Because we were, because I remember being in the GameSpot. We were at the Ace Hotel. That's where we were. Right. I remember us watching that showcase, and then it was like all of these games are coming out in the next year.
That's
JK.
right. Of course.
That's right.
JK, and then
I mean, I feel like I feel. To answer your question, Alanah, I think the whole thing has moved for Xbox now, because when we used to think of those like platform showcases, that was like, all right, what have you got for us? The story of what was in those showcases was also the story for overall platform health and the future and momentum of those platforms, because you'd be like, whoa, man, Xbox had a bitchin' showcase. That was sick. There's so many games that are going to come out. So many people are going to buy an Xbox now. They're going to sell through units and build their install base and like the console, whatever. Now it's like they're going to have a showcase, and I will not even think for 2 seconds what this is going to mean for hardware sales and overall like platform health, because I don't think Xbox really care about that at this point. I think they're kind of out of that race now. Like we had reports this week that Xbox sales were down 30% year on year. They were down 30% year on year the year before that as well. They keep talking about their play anywhere strategy, which is cool, by the way. Like, it's great that everyone gets to play wherever they want, sure. But all I'm saying is that I think Xbox at this point are very clearly playing a different game.
Totally.
And as a result, the stakes for a showcase are different. Because if Nintendo has a showcase and there's nothing on there, like a big showcase, and there's nothing coming for the next 12 months, we're like, well, they're not going to sell many Switch units. It's going to be a quiet year for Nintendo, right? That equation still holds. Same with PlayStation, right? They have to have these big, states of play to show whatever, and that's very important for them as a business, for the PlayStation business. But now, if Xbox has a pretty average showcase, it's like, oh well, they're still going to sell lots of Call of Duty. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different thing now, and I don't know. Like, I get it, but it's less fun. I don't know. It's less fun to imagine that Xbox brand fighting tooth and nail to, like keep its place in this console ecosystem. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
they moved out a while ago, I think. Like, it's not like they're not still there, but it's not, that's not, their goal is not to sell more consoles than anyone else.
Yeah, and I think there was within that goal creates a lot of interesting stuff, right? A lot of fire on the part of like developers to and the management to drive toward really high quality exclusives that keep them in the game, right? And now it's like recently, Xbox announced that their revenue is up 61%, but 60% of that is from Activision Blizzard King. You know what I mean? So like 1% of that comes from
how much of that is King?
Yeah,
that's a very good question.
Those Candy Crush dollars.
Probably 59%.
So sweet.
So I just think all of that stuff is I don't know. Yeah, I there's so many ways you can look at this, and it's weird that I have like these kind of sad feelings about. Like, I just feel kind of sad that this is changing in this way, because I like the idea of these big 3 platforms duking it out, trying to make the best hardware and the best games, and it's winner takes all. No, it's not winner takes all. That's not true. But I don't know. Now
we were part of an audience of like an F1, and now it's just Max Verstappen. I don't know why I went for that reference, but you know what I mean? It's like, I think
there's always got to be a Batman, and there's always got to be a Joker.
That's not even, I guess that's not really what I'm talking about.
It's like with E3 being gone as well, that's something
that hallway,
another thing,
totally. Xbox on one side and PlayStation. There was just something,
and we all made fun of it. Like, everyone was like, "Fuck E3" by the end. I just, and like so many of the reactions are so cynical, but it's still like there was a little bit of magic in that time of year of like watching people try and one up each other is exciting to watch. You're like, what are they going to show us this time? And I agree, there are less stakes, and thus it's like less for us to get invested in.
Yeah, it's definitely not the console wars bullshit. Like, I've never cared about console wars, but I really do believe in the overall dynamics of like, 3 big platforms fighting hard to make the best hardware and software that they can make, and I think that's produced really incredible stuff in the past. Yeah. And I think if that dynamic is weakened, I don't think it means good things for the industry personally. Like, I'm not saying the industry's doomed, but I just think that was a good thing to have for as long as we had it. And if it goes away, which it feels like it is kind of sliding away, I think that's a bit of a shame, I think.
It's like Burger King, McDonald's, and Taco Bell, but then Taco Bell suddenly decides to kind of pivot and do its own thing that maybe you're not as interested in. And,
making salads and shit, Yeah.
Yeah, fuck salad.
Fuck salad, man. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, F1, fast food, whatever.
We're whipping them all out. Even though we don't need the analogies, everyone knows exactly what we're saying. We're like, how do I relate this to you, audience?
Right.
Imagine you've never heard of video games. It's Max Verstappen. It's again, it was like we had the privilege of sitting back and being like, wow, me, giant company, and that is kind of cool. Like, it's less, we're less of an audience to an E3, I think, than we necessarily were previously. And I'm sure we'll see the changes to that as Xbox dives further into that new role of publisher and what that means and what their plans are.
Oh, I miss just being like, oh yeah, Xbox has Usher and Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Who's PlayStation gonna have? What car is gonna be on stage? What wacky shit is Nintendo gonna do? Like making all of their execs puppets, and I don't know. I miss that kind of like. I think because it was concentrated into one. Like few days, and it was just like. Which
it still will be this year, though, right? Like with Summer Game Fest.
It still will be, but like
it's Xbox and Ubisoft.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much they're the only 2 showcases happening this year, I think, as I understand. Like there'll be some other stuff, but there's always other stuff like 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after from like Nintendo or Sony or whatever.
Devolver.
But like, the what? Oh, Devolver. Yeah, that's right. They'll do their cheeky thing, of course. So I don't know, like, it's hard. It's almost hard to vocalize as well, because I'm sure it's like, well, actually, here's 5 reasons why that's not actually happening. That whatever. And it's like, there's lots of facts. There's lots of facts you can point to that suggest that this isn't the case, or reasons why you shouldn't care. But it's also just like, well, it also just feels like it kind of is. You know what I mean?
You know, one thing that I think it is, it's that I think the showcases themselves have gotten cleaner. Like there was an element of messiness to them that I liked. And if it was just them scrapping to be one over on each other, or like pulling out all the stops to get celebrities and you know, those big talking moments in, I just feel like, yeah, like the Game Awards has those, or they'll have the Muppets or a performance or something. But it's like, I don't know, I kind of liked it when it came from the platform holders themselves, because it was just like, oh, what you got up your sleeve this time? And it was like a little.
Things do feel
messy.
very polished now, for sure.
Yeah.
Except for that, wasn't it Ubisoft last year where Eve called it Ubisoft Outlook? Sorry, Star Wars Outlook. And everyone was like, does he own the company?
Yeah.
It's not Far Cry Teams.
And that was one with like, if you were watching it, the camera angles were so weird and zoomed in the whole time. And like I was watching the stream and it just kept zooming in on people. It was
so weird.
The Far Cry guy was like trying to crack jokes, except they weren't recording the crowd laughter, so it looked like all these jokes bombing on stream and stuff. And that was so that's the kind of message
we love that.
Keep that up, please.
Yeah, it maybe feels more corporate now. I'm also wondering though, could it be that we as humans are getting older?
I didn't want to bring that up.
Not possible.
Could it be that?
Like, we have immediately just gone from, hey, how is everyone, to remember the good old days.
Mm-hmm. No, pretty fast.
Let's be real though. We have had this kind of like this Xbox has been fighting this battle. Like these three companies have been fighting this battle since 2001, I think is when the Xbox launched. And obviously before that we had the PlayStation. Before that we had obviously Sega and Nintendo doing their thing. Like this dynamic has existed for a long time. And now it's definitely notably changing. One of the major players is sort of choosing to play a very different game. Nintendo and Sony are still doing it, of course, but it's definitely a big thing where like Xbox has been playing this very specific game for 20 years and now they're not, or it feels like they're not. And
it was better back in my day.
Well, yeah, sure, but like also, like I don't know. Look, I've never bought into the whole idea of like, gaming was better back then. I don't agree with that because I really think, you know, last year is a perfect example of how many incredible games came out. And like, so I've never bought into the idea of like, you know, new games suck or gaming used to be so much better. Like I've never bought into that because I think some aspects were better, some aspects were worse. There's new innovations coming all the time, et cetera, et cetera. But I do look at this kind of, you know, platform dynamic thing. And I don't know. I'm less, it just kind of is a bummer to know that Xbox throws their massive weight behind a Call of Duty showcase at the back end of one of their annual showcase. Like last year it was Starfield, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's cool. That's exciting. Really what could Starfield be? Like imagine, could be so many things. Didn't turn out to be as many as people hoped. Hey, but the point is like, what's Call of Duty going to be? It's going to be exactly what you think it is. You know what I mean? And I think that's just inherently less exciting. So
do we know how long the showcase is? Because it's like, that's not to say we won't have tons of features during the actual showcase, and they just broke out the Call of Duty bit for our own convenience, so we can be like,
we can just click close. So
I don't know. I mean, last year I think it was like an hour for the main showcase, an hour for the Starfield bit. So I would imagine
Starfield was 45. I remember Starfield being 45. Yeah.
Still like a meaty amount of time.
Yeah.
How would they get 45 minutes? Again, no disrespect to Call of Duty, but how do you get 45 minutes out of Call of Duty?
They'll just show a war. I was about to say Warframe.
Probably there'll be Warframe ads in the middle for some reason.
They'll just show a Warzone game. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like this is a good segue because I picked a user question for us. contact@friendspersecond.com if you want to email them over, which is kind of a little bit about looking back and playing games at a certain time of your life. And as we've just had a little nice reminisce, I thought it was quite nice. It's from Jonah. He says, hi all, I'm a huge fan of puzzle games like The Talos Principle, Baba Is You, and Fez. When talking about them with friends, one thing I always reflect on is that I never would have been able to beat The Witness if it hadn't have been for COVID-19. If I wasn't stuck at home all day, there's no way I would have had the patience to take literally dozens of pages of notes on hedge mazes and light patterns. He has a similar view on Celeste. When I first played it, I was unemployed and having a tough time mentally. The overarching theme of building confidence in yourself despite setbacks really resonated with me. So my question for the FPS team is there a game that you feel you could only have played at a certain point in your life? Or alternatively, is there a game that resonated with you especially strongly because of something in your life? It wouldn't be the same if you played it for the first time today.
It's a great question.
I really like that question a lot.
I also played The Witness when I had pneumonia. When I first moved to the US, before I got healthcare, I got sick and then got sicker and then got pneumonia. And so I was sickened at home and also homesick because it was like just after I'd moved. So I played through The Witness with one of my housemates at the time. And yeah, it's exactly the same thing, is that I don't know if I could have done that. Like, that game's so involving. I love it so much. I also played Obra Dinn when sick, which like similar kind of thing. But I feel like you guys might have the same thing, that I have a lot of gaming memories that I tie to breakups or loss of people. You know, like if you're a person who plays video games, you can find a lot of solace in video games. So like I played through the whole of GTA 3 the first time that I realized man I thought I would marry didn't like me, you know? And I like so distinctly remember playing that and listening to this certain album I was listening to. One of my friends died in a car accident. I replayed Halo 3. So I feel like there's like a lot of games that I like kind of attribute as getting me through tough things. It's not that I wouldn't have, like I had already played Halo 3, but like we played that game together. So I played through the campaign and it was like a goodbye to my friend Matt. And I feel like that's Abzu I played in a really shitty period of time. It's like games that like comfort you through stuff that sucks. And I'm thankful for them for existing in that way.
Yeah.
Sure.
No.
Definitely something similar with World of Warcraft and breakups. Like definitely had to break up with a number of girlfriends because of World of Warcraft. I mean, there's only so much time in the day, and you had to prioritize. You had to make a choice, and that choice was clear. So,
did you ever ask them to play World of Warcraft?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm actually joking. The truth with World of Warcraft though is that that the time of your life thing, like that game that I played, because that was like my 20s. You know what I mean? And like I failed so many subjects at university because of World of Warcraft, and like just because I just played way too much WoW. And that whole thing was just kind of a function of, you know, when you've got time enough in your life to play that game, you can do it, you know, and then obviously you enter a new chapter of life where so many different games are just off the table now, you know. Like I'd love to be able to go all in on WoW once again. I've spoken about this in the past, like my regret of missing vanilla WoW, but the relaunch of, you know, classic WoW. Like I'm so sad about that, because it would have been great to step back into that world at that time in my life where I had time enough to do that, you know, and it was all good. That's just not possible now. And so that definitely feels kind of bittersweet. But I, you know, really thankful for that time in a way. Like it's weird to look back on a video game and think, man, I'm so glad I played that, especially one that I think can have some very destructive impacts on your life. A game like World of Warcraft, for sure, right? Yeah, but I took the good with the bad, and the friends that I made with that game, I still speak to them today. The memories that I have, it sounds so nerdy, but like there are so many vivid memories I have of just like playing that game with the boys, you know, 2 a.m., just like doing dailies after we finished a raid, talking about bullshit, like guild politics, garbage, nonsense. But it was so fun, you know. You know
how people say like, oh, when you're on your deathbed, like this is like an old person's sentiment, like, yeah, you'll regret all the time you play video games. I'm like, I don't know that I will, dude.
I will 100% on my deathbed remember the first
like,
time
that
we
WoW
killed
raid was
Nuru
sick.
after 500 lives. You know what I mean? Like, I will remember those boss kills.
Totally.
Like, that was fucking sick, man.
Yeah.
Oh, it was fantastic. So,
Jake, what about you?
I did the thing where while you guys were having your lovely answers, I was just like racking my brain going, do I just have nothing? Am I boring or fortunate to have not maybe had a hardship in my life where a game got me through it? But Ralph, you kind of sparked something with me. For Minecraft is actually something I kind of think of, because it was a time in my life where it was like I was going to college, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I kind of hated it. So I was burning time and money. I was trying to get the YouTube thing off the ground, but I didn't even really know. Like, I was having a lot of fun doing it, but I didn't even know at that point yet if that was even something that somebody could do in their life. And Minecraft was just this thing I would just kind of dive into. And it was like early Minecraft, like back when you would just like be like, what's Notch saying about what he's going to fix? You know, back when Notch.
Oh, why did he say that?
And it's like, I remember just sitting in the back of college classrooms burning I had put it on a MacBook, and I had dual booted the MacBook. What do you call it?
I did that to play Guild Wars.
So I got Windows on it, and I was just like burning. Yeah, boot camp. I was burning Minecraft. Like I was burning this computer, just playing Minecraft all day and just failing classes. And I also would take that energy home and be really excited about like talking about video games on camera to friends I didn't have to talk about this stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like an interesting tipping point, because I'm not like a Minecraft YouTuber, or I've barely even gone on record about Minecraft other than when I first started making YouTube videos. So I guess I do have one, kind of. It's Minecraft.
Mine would probably be, there's a bunch over the years. Like I would say Yakuza 0, I played in the middle of COVID, like, you know, a couple months in. That's not the middle at all, but like when it felt like it was really in the thick of things, and I just was like, oh, I have so much time. Finally, I can play Yakuza 0. But I think the one I would probably say would be Overwatch. So I was in this relationship, and I was one of those ones where it was like mostly all you had was each other, and it wasn't really like I wasn't as sociable as I am now. I had friends, but not as close as I would say my group of friends are now. Definitely didn't go out as much, and we would play Overwatch with some friends, but then we broke up, and it was a really nasty one. And then I just started to play Overwatch with these people, not him, way more. And then we got really close, and like a bunch of them worked at IGN at the time in the UK, and then we kind of got to like that. We were already friends, but that helped us because we would just be like online every night, like 9 p.m. All right, boys, let's go. You know, and then we'd have other people drop in and out, and you know, they're still some of my closest friends to this day. And now I'm in a place where I definitely attribute their friendship and like those memories playing Overwatch with like wanting to put myself out there more and just like be happier and be around my friends rather than people who make me miserable. So I definitely would say that. It's so weird though, because I haven't picked up Overwatch in so long, and it just feels like.
You mean you aren't playing Overwatch too?
Alanah, I can't even tell you what the latest hero is called, and that is so weird for me to say, because I was so drilled into that game for 5+ years. Like it was my everything. You know, but I still value it immensely.
Is there still a big community just playing the first game? Because I know, like, obviously nobody gives a shit about the second game, but are there still people who can't play it at all?
Game, Alanah.
Wow.
Yeah, because believe me, I would be one of them.
So they just took the whole first game offline
at some point.
Yeah. I can't remember if they took it offline. Yeah, and then they moved it from 6v6 to 5v5, the hero pool, the battle pass stuff, seasons.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
The loot box changes. And
why did they even call it Overwatch 2? It's just, you know,
it was a whole other podcast.
Yeah, true. Several years ago.
We don't need to pull at this thread.
Tired already.
But no. Anyway, so that was a really nice question. Thank you very much to Jonah, who also says as a PS, one of you should play the Talos Principle 2 and talk about it. It rules.
Yeah.
I love that game.
Austin, my man Austin, he played it and loved it. You played it, did you, Alanah?
Yeah, love that game.
Cool.
Love the first one. They have just such a unique language. Yeah, they're really, really great games. Big fan.
Yeah.
All right, next up, we have an interview with Lucas Pope and Cabel Sasser. So Lucas Pope, you'll know as game developer behind Papers, Please and Return of the Obra Dinn. Return of the Obra Dinn?
Yeah.
Yeah, Return of the Obra Dinn and Mars After Midnight, which is on the Playdate, which is made obviously by Panic, and Cabel is the co-founder. This was a really fun chat about how that device got made, how developers are making games for it, and kind of we touched a little bit on how the indie scene is looking right now and their advice for developers. So here you go.
It's never too late to switch things up. Look at me. A few years ago, I was chained to a desk doing corporate things. No disrespect to anyone who loves that, but it certainly wasn't making me happy. I've told this story in the past, but when I wanted to break into the games business, no one would hire me, so I decided to make my own website that focused on video game guides. Thing was, I had no idea how to build a website, so I spent a few $1,000s paying someone to build it, and the website was terrible. It wasn't the web designer's fault, it was entirely on me. My idea was very bad. The point of this story was that back then you had to pay someone thousands of dollars to build a website for your business idea, because that was pretty much the only way to get a website made. Not so today, because thankfully we now have Squarespace. Squarespace is the place to build almost any website you'll need. Want to sell handmade candles? You can build a website for that. Want to profile your art portfolio? You can build a website for that. Want to start writing gaming reviews and commentary to shoulder barge your way into the industry? You can build a website for that. Squarespace's intuitive tools allow you to build a professional-looking website in minutes, and their rich suite of advanced features allows you to promote and monetize your work so that you can earn a living from it. So if you're looking for a sea change, you're in luck, because not only is Squarespace free to get started with, but if you use offer code SKILLUP, you'll get 10% off your purchase of a domain name. Click the link below to get started. Thanks Squarespace for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it. Hello, and thank you both for being here, Lucas and Cabel. Really fantastic. It's been a little while that we've been trying to organize this chat, given the nature of time zones and where everyone's at in the world, etc. People traveling, doing crazy things. But yeah, it's really fantastic to have you both here. So yeah, just a big thanks. Really excited to talk about two things today. First is Playdate. And the second is, Lucas, your new game, which is exclusive to the Playdate, and it's exclusive for a reason. And I wonder, I think if anyone imagines, oh, there's a handheld gaming console. Okay, that's cool, I guess. But I don't think until you actually see the Playdate, you don't really grasp what this thing is, because it's very weird. It's totally unique. So I guess, Cabel, you're one of the co-founders of Playdate. Tell us how this whole thing began.
Oh, man. So our company has been around for a long time, over 25 years at this point. It's called Panic, and we started making Mac software, and then we accidentally fell into game publishing with a game called Firewatch. It's kind of a long story, but a friend of mine went to Telltale and made Walking Dead, and then left Telltale, and then wanted to make Firewatch. And so we're like, oh, we can help you with that. And that sort of pushed us into the games universe and kind of opened our minds a little bit as to what is possible in the world. And we'd always striving to challenge ourselves and do interesting new things. And I think we felt like we kind of had software on lock, like we were pretty good at making Mac apps, and what's something else that we could do? And we thought, oh, we should maybe try hardware. For a while, the idea is maybe we can make a cool clock for like people that really love Panic. And then we started thinking about Game & Watch games and how those are kind of cool. And maybe we can make a Game & Watch game that's Panic themed. And then we found this screen that's really interesting that kind of feels like a Game & Watch screen, but is pixels, right? So it doesn't have to be fixed segmented screen of different animations or whatever. So then we made, this is the most condensed version of the story imaginable. Then we made a game for that. And then we're like, wow, those games aren't very fun for very long. Maybe we should actually make actual games for this device. Basically, I was joking very recently that like throughout the history of Panic, we've never really had more than like a 4-week plan, let alone a 5-year plan. Like it's always sort of what's the immediate next thing that we want to do that could be interesting. And Playdate is the ultimate version of that, where it was just a series of small steps. And then one day we shipped a little gaming console with an incredible amount of work in between point A and point B. So yeah, we just decided to make this unique system with a black and white screen, and our friends at Teenage Engineering came up with this little crank on the side that does not power the device. It is an analog controller for games. And the screen is super interesting and works really well outdoors, which not a lot of screens do. And it's just a system of contradictions, right? It's got this black and white screen, but Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and a good processor. It's super weird, but very fun for us. And that's not even counting all of the work we did on the software side, which was make a development kit and an SDK and allow people to make games for it and make a store and make a bundle of games that come with the system that are delivered every week. Anyways, it's a lot. Yeah. Basically, we made a handheld game system. That's what you need to know. Yeah.
Well, I'm actually holding it. You know what? If you're on podcast on RSS, you can't see this, but I'm holding it in my hands. Yeah, Jake's got one too. It kind of looks like one of those AI assistants, but the difference is this one actually does stuff. So that's really cool. That's a really nice upgrade.
I think it's the other way around, but yeah.
So. Yeah, no, but it is a really, really wonderfully designed device. It's very simple, obviously, and I guess that is one of the strangest features about it. Like, it is a very, very simple device. And I wondered, as you were designing this, how did the people making it sit with that simplicity? How did the people who are playtesting it respond to that simplicity? Because all our devices now are like, you know, these screens and they do everything and they have a million things and whatever else. And this is just like a little tiny screen and with 2 buttons and a D-pad and a crank, and that's it, you know? So that journey to that simplicity, what was that like?
I mean, originally, Teenage Engineering pitched us on all sorts of different controls, a slider and, force sensitive buttons and all these different ideas. And I think eventually we reached a point where it was like, it's going to be too much for people. Like, the crank is wild enough. Like, black and white screen plus crank is probably pushing people to their limit, honestly, in terms of what we can get away with. So I think that definitely helped us rein it in a little bit, that these are our 2 interesting things, right? That are the most obvious. As far as limitations go, and I would love to hear Lucas's take on this. For us, it's been really nice having limitations on the system. Having a black and white screen is weirdly freeing when it comes to making games and developing games. It really limits the complexity of the, art that you can do and really forces you to design specifically for this really unique thing. And even the crank is like opens up potential and inspires creativity, at least among us. And so oddly, normally you would say, how can you sell a device with a black and white screen in the year 2024? But I think we saw it as kind of energizing in a way, It's not a PS5 game, quite obviously. It's something super different. So, yeah.
And is that... So, Lucas, I mean, how did you first hear about the Playdate? Like, how did it first come onto you? Did you get an email in your inbox being like, hey, we're making this thing. You want to make a game for it? Or, like, how did that begin?
No, and forgiveness has been a long journey for me on that one. No, nobody ever contacted me. I saw it when it was announced with everyone else.
Right. No way.
And, I mean, to Cabel was saying, they wanted to make something fun. That was kind of the deal for me. And I had just come off Obra Dinn. So I was already in the 1-bit headspace and thinking that 1-bit was great. I really loved working in 1-bit. And then they had this hardware device that was 1-bit. And I actually knew about that screen as well. That sharp memory screen was kind of a big deal. The websites that I used to go to were like, they'd use it in a calculator or something like that. Using a couple different devices. And I was thinking, that thing is amazing. Wouldn't it be cool if I could do something with this? And I think I even bought like an ESP32 thinking that I could hook it up to the screen because I'd heard that actually it wires in pretty easily. And then these maniacs at Playdate actually did it. And it was the kind of thing where like, I was thinking for myself, I would like to work with that screen, but obviously, no one's going to make a piece of hardware based on this. And they did it. And so it was kind of like right up my alley, exactly what I wanted to see. And the fact that it's simple, I mean, like Cabel said, that's the key. It's if it could do all this other stuff, then you're competing with all my cell phone, which is you've lost already. But if it's kind of has this unique setup and this unique concept, then it's just a lot more interesting for me personally. And I figured, okay, that that will translate to other people too.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, because
Cabel, I'm curious.
Sorry, Jake.
What was it like working with Teenage Engineering? I'm like a huge fan of their stuff. So like, was it a hard sell to get them into gaming? Because as far as I know, this is like the first gaming thing they've worked on.
First of all, before I forget, Lucas said the screen is used elsewhere. One of the most famous places where our screen is used is in coffee machines in 7-Elevens in Japan. It's like the screen that
awesome.
is like brewing and like has the simple animation. Yeah.
Perfect.
So, you know, to me, that's good news because maybe they'll just keep making it for a long time. But anyways, so when we emailed TE, so a strange thing about Panic, because we have been around for so long, we have this weird kind of corporate karma that we've built up over a really long period of time. And our FTP clients aren't, you know, that's a really boring thing to make, but that's something that Teenage Engineering had used in the past. So I cold emailed them, hey, we're making this game system, but we know nothing about industrial design. We need somebody to design the outside of it and the mechanics of it. And David at TE just replied. He's like, oh yeah, we love Transmit. Yeah, cool. Let's talk about this and figure it out. It was so chill, almost unnervingly chill. And then we had a good meeting with them. And then Jesper sent over this render that had the crank, and then that just like kicked us into overdrive. It's like we never would have imagined that idea if it wasn't for Jesper, and it just felt like the secret ingredient, right? And I think that's what they're really good at. And so we're like definitely like corporate friends now, if that's a thing.
Business pals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we show up with our briefcases, and I think we really respect the work that they do. And of all the companies in the world, I think they're one of the few, honestly, that we respect. That seems over dramatic, but there's a lot of not great companies, especially tech companies out there, where, you know, the vibes are uncomfortable, and definitely we're in good sync with TE. So it was great. It's great. We still enjoy working with them. And in fact, I'm going to see a bunch of them soon. So yeah, we're friends. Yeah.
Awesome. So the launch, I mean, this is a very niche product, but it's been spectacularly successful, it seems. Like, tell us about how that launch went, because that's definitely, I think, exceeded most people's expectations.
For sure. We sold a lot in a very short period of time. 20,000 20 minutes or something like that. And in fact, it was, you know, we're making it all up as we go along. So we concocted this elaborate pre-order system, and we would put people into batches based on how many we thought we could make and when they would ship. And of course, we hit almost none of those dates along the way. But
But you were doing that during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. Not fun. Yeah, that sucked. There was a big drop off the second the estimated ship date flipped from whatever it was to the next year. And so it was like everybody wanted to be in that first batch was something that we learned from that. But our expectations were very mellow, I think. And the project has definitely exceeded our expectations in almost every possible way. I think the fact that there's so many games for it continuously surprises us, that people, you know, we have Catalog, which is our store, and we have a Slack channel anytime somebody submits a game to Catalog so we can all check it out. And it's just every day there's something cool that somebody makes for Playdate, which I don't think we ever would have imagined. So not just people buying it, but people being excited about it and developing things for it. It is a very nice feeling all around. Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
to get into the relationship you have with developers, I mean, also we should probably say that Cabel, this is you and Lucas are actually speaking for the first time.
Yeah.
I think you said.
Which I super enjoyed hearing that story, because I've never heard that story before. So yeah.
And I mean, from Lucas, your point of view, like you find out with everyone else, what was it like to develop for the Playdate? And then Cabel, I'll come to you and ask, you know, what was your relationship like with developers who were creating things for the device? So Lucas first.
Yeah, I think it was really easy, basically. You know, when you talk about working on consoles and stuff like that, you've got a dev kit and you've got your desktop and you're working on there, and then you transfer to the dev kit and you debug it on there and you run it on there. For the Playdate was very close to basically iOS development, which was something that, I mean, I think from their Mac experience, they knew how it sort of worked. But a lot of companies don't really know how to take that, how to make it so easy, basically, to work on a desktop and then transfer it to the hardware and test it there. So it was, that process was all set up when I started working on it already. It wasn't like they were working through a lot of issues with that. It was all like smooth as silk, basically, which was a surprise to me. And it kind of told me, like, these guys know what they're doing. They're not just throwing out some crazy ass hardware or some cool TE design. They actually thought about this ecosystem for developing games, and the SDK was all set up so it had the features that you would need if you wanted to get a 2D game up and running. So it was great. It was really nice. And I had come from working on a desktop game, and I normally work on desktop stuff. So that was a kind of a shock I was worried about. And honestly, that was probably the biggest challenge for me too, is like thinking in desktop size, but actually playing and designing in handheld space with a very small device and small screen. But because it was so easy, you could debug on the simulator, and you can make the simulator the size basically of the physical hardware. So you can kind of get a sense of what this size screen you'll be working with. And then you can quickly just click a button and wait a few seconds and then be playing it on the device itself, which is also important because there's a physical crank, which is supposed to, it feels different. You can't simulate that really on a desktop. So that whole process, there's a lot of things to be worried about there when you're developing to make that smooth. And everything was pretty much really easy and really well done. So, and like I said, I think that's because Panic, maybe Cabel can answer this, but Panic has a lot of experience with that environment of making those things easy. And especially being on Mac, there's this this model of how you work on an iPhone game, basically, which was sort of captured very well with the Playdate SDK.
That's super nice to hear. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you for putting that together.
It's good.
Made it easy and fun. So.
Why didn't we talk sooner, Lucas? This feels great. I think you're right. I think we are app developers, right? So we have to deal with development environments and development kits, and we know the rough edges and the things that drive us nuts and the things we want to avoid. And we have a little experience with console development through game publishing and all of those portals and setting up dev kits and all that stuff. Like, you definitely internally, you know what's a smooth experience and what's not. And I had nothing to do with any of that, but the thing that I consistently hear is that the SDK is really nice and developing for Playdate is really nice. And a lot of people that have actually never made a game before are super excited to give it a whirl, and that's the greatest. So that's really nice. And Lucas, one thing that like is funny about us, when of course I was super incredibly excited that you wanted to make a game for Playdate, and then I was immediately nervous because it's like, what if this doesn't, like, what are his expectations? And like, it's not, there's a limit to the market size. There's only so many he can sell. Like, we're all kind of like fretting about it while also being super stoked. Are you okay? Is everything going okay?
This is great.
Not the right time to ask that question.
This is a great conversation. Platform holder asks developer, are you okay?
Are you okay? How's it going? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I knew that going in. Like, I knew this was a niche product. That's why it appealed to me. You know, I mean, I make games about checking passports and 1-bit 3D games and bullshit like that. So like, I wasn't looking for something that had a huge market. To me, the attraction was, you know, the hardware, the concept, the crank. Like, when the Wii came out, I was kind of slogging it in tools at some game company. So I wasn't in a position to be making stuff for the Wii. But it was the same kind of thing for me with Playdate, where when I saw the Wii controller, I was thinking like the Wii-Con, that thing is fucking awesome. I really want to make a game using this new novel input technique. And so when the Playdate came around, I thought the crank, okay, that's really dumb. I would love to make something for that. That's nobody would put a fucking crank on a console. I'm there. I'm so there. So I had lots of ideas about how to use it. And yeah, I mean, that's where I was coming from. And that's kind of how I approach all my projects. And it's just that I got super lucky with Papers, Please and Obra Dinn that there was enough market there, enough people who also wanted that same weird thing that, you know, financially I was comfortable enough with basically Playdate being a niche device and spending time working on it. And also the nature of the project itself, was during the pandemic. So, I mean, my headspace was already totally screwed up, and making a game for the Playdate and specifically aimed at my kids was almost like therapy, basically. It was something I really wanted to do, not for reasons of financial gain or reach or anything like that. Everything about it sort of lined up with what I wanted at the time and what I felt, you know, the Playdate was good for.
That's awesome. Thank you. That to me embodies the spirit of Playdate. It's really nice to hear you say that. Thanks.
Yeah, wow. So, I mean, specific to Mars After Midnight. So I've obviously played this game. It's super weird. I'd have my own way of describing it. But Lucas, did you want to like set up for the audience what this game is?
Okay, well, it's basically you're working the door at a community center on Mars, And it's not, there's several colonies on Mars. There's the Earth colony, and then there's off colony settlement. And that's where you're working, on the off colony settlement. So you're not even top tier community center worker. And basically every night, it's divided into nights, and every night there's a new session to help a new group of 6 Martians in the settlement. And it could be things like Martians that don't blink. So you gotta you're working the door basically. So you're looking at these Martians and seeing that they satisfy the criteria for tonight's session. And it's a very simple game. You kind of buzz right through it. There's no fail mode really. You can if you make a mistake, you can sort of pick up and try again. You're earning money as I say people, this whole game, it's really hard because they're Martians. You're earning money as Martians come in, and they come in when you let them in, and then they eat some food from the table. There's free refreshments, obviously. If you're going to run a community center, you need to have some free refreshments. And they mess up the table, so there's a small mechanic where you're cleaning up the table after every Martian that comes in. And then they go into a session, and once you load up 6 in a session, then the session runs, and you don't actually run the session. You have a buddy who does that for you. And it's really, you clean up, and then you prepare for the next day. You plan for the next session. So it has a little simulation elements in it, little kind of puzzle elements with cleaning the table. And then this, really the kind of marquee feature that I developed it for was this opening the window to see a Martian's face. And I felt like that's a cool way to use the crank. That's not, even in the world of cranking, there's things you would expect, which is, fishing and other kind of like spinning things. I thought, okay, even in that world, maybe I can do something that no one else is really expecting. So the crank represents the kind of physical manifestation of the little window that you're opening to check to see the Martians' faces, to see if they can come in. And that is also...
Go on.
That is also like something I wanted to leverage with the hardware and the device, and the concept is I really like the idea of you can't see the whole thing. The screen is physically small. So it's like you're looking through a small window when you hold up the screen. It's not like a 2D platform where you have a little guy and a level that you're running through. It was like, I really wanted to match the kind of physical restraints. So you see a big face, but only a little part of it. And I spent a long time working on this face generator with pieces that I'd drawn and putting together funny Martian faces. I really wanted it to be where you flip open, just a very simple, you flip open the door and there's a weird alien there, and it's like kind of funny because he looks super weird or something. He's got a big nose, or his eyes are crossed or something like that. And then that was really where I started. And I put that together roughly, and I showed it to my kids, and they would just sit there like flipping it open and closing just to check the different Martians one after another, and they enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't a deep enjoyment. I'm not talking like Zelda enjoyment here, but it was like, it was enough. And I felt like for me, I was happy with that, that I could sort of get them involved. Like my other games, there's lots of death and murder and real sad shit going on. So my kids can't play that stuff. They're 9 and 11 years old. They hear about it and they can play, hear the music and stuff like that, but they can't play the game itself. So I really was happy with that sort of capture of something that they could enjoy on this device, only works on this device. And yeah, it kind of went from there, basically adding gameplay elements and trying to add more depth to it. Yeah.
It's really funny because like the first one that you do is like Cyclops anger management. And so but you only want to let in Cyclops. So if it has 2 or more eyes, it's not a Cyclops technically. So you open the flap and you're like, nah, man, you got 3 eyes, piss off. And you close the flap, and then they have to leave, right?
Yeah.
Or if they've got like a smile, that means they don't have an anger problem. They're happy. So what are you doing here? So you close the flap. There's one called like the farty party where like you have to open this flap and then you stare at this alien and you have to wait for it to fart. And if it doesn't fart, then it clearly does not have a problem. You know what I mean? So
there's a real that element of piss off was like, for me, really fun. I mean, the kids loved it too. It's like slamming the window on the Martian. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, what are you wasting my time for? That's a perfect kind of sort of thing that, for me, I would love to build a game around that. And that's kind of what I try to do.
Yeah. So in terms of like actually building it, so you've talked about like really enjoying that simplicity side of it. I mean, what did you learn throughout that development process? Because I think you also documented it, didn't you? Like you had a blog running where you where you talked about that journey. But like, what were the major things that you learned while making this game? It was 3 years of development, right?
Something like that. Kind of on and off. Well, for every game I make, I try to learn something new. For me, the journey is just as enjoyable. Basically, it's kind of why I make games. I love learning new stuff. And Playdate was a good one because it was all new for me. The Playdate SDK and most of the games are made using a language called Lua, which I hadn't used before. And I thought, okay, this is a cool opportunity to learn Lua. And Lua is a weird language. I think for someone like me who comes from Python and C and C++ and other JavaScript and stuff like that, Lua was a little tweaked. So I learned a lot doing that. The face generator too, like I spent years on that stupid thing, figuring out ways to like generate faces, and that's all Python code. So that's a separate offline tool that puts the faces together and randomly generates faces, and then I can kind of choose which ones I want to include in the game. That was a big learning experience. Just, I think like with any game, you kind of start out in the beginning, you have something you're like, okay, this is good, this is great, I'm pretty much done here, right? And then like 2 weeks later, you look back on it and you, at least me, I think like this is not even close to started, basically. So there was a lot of that for 2.5 years of thinking that, this is pretty good. I think I can pretty much wrap this up any minute now. And then I give it to my kids and I realize like they're buzzing through it and they're not engaged really in the way that I want, or it's missing elements here and there. So there were a lot of times where I had to sort of keep adding little things, the cleaning the table, add that. Add the buddy robot, add the kind of overall art narrative for the whole thing. So there was a lot of like kind of figuring out as I went. I kind of like Panic. I have no plan beyond the next 2 weeks, basically. Yeah. I start with an idea that I think would be cool. Maybe I think about it a little bit. I basically need to decide you could make a good game out of this. I can kind of see somebody who could make a good game. I don't know what that game is and I don't know how to get there, but if I just keep banging on it long enough, maybe I'll find it. And so that's what I did with this game too. But like for me, like I said, learning Lua was a big deal. The face generation was a big deal. But the most interesting thing, something I kind of talked about earlier, like a game made for a physical device that small with that many quirks required a lot of careful design work on my end that I did not really expect. Things like the way the dither pattern moves on the screen can flash if you don't do it quite right, or just the focus on these large, high contrast faces was not something that was clear to me. When you're working on a bright desktop screen, you can see all the details. You're like, okay, this looks great. Oh, I need more details around the door here. You put that on the screen and you hold it, a couple feet away from your face, and you realize like, actually what matters is I can't tell what's going on. There's not enough contrast here, or it's just not clear that the screen, I worked too much on the details basically and not enough on the big points. And that was, a lot of that going on, and things like physically manipulating the crank and the buttons is difficult, and even the D-pad. Or I had originally planned, you're looking through a window for this game, and I had planned to use a gyroscope to do that. So you kind of tilt the thing around, you kind of look around, which is, a natural expectation. But actually, when you do that, you're moving the whole freaking device. Yeah. It's just, it doesn't work, basically. It's one of those things where you'd think like, obviously we're going to be moving the screen, looking around the window, it's just perfect. But when you actually do it and you get it in your hands, you're like, actually, I wish I could just use a D-pad for this. And there were a lot of things like that where it had to be really tuned. And for me, really carefully thought in the hardware space, in the physical device itself, which is something I had never done before. I was always concerned about a big ass screen in front of the player's face with, a mouse and keyboard. So that was really interesting and a lot of fun for me to sort of work on those sort of design problems.
Yeah, right. Well, it really came together super well. I mean, I've been playing it and it's just fun and weird and funny. And yeah, I'm really glad that it exists in the way that it does. You know what I mean? Because it just feels like this very unique thing made for this very unique device. And it's nice to experience something like that on occasion, So yeah, I mean, pivoting the conversation a little bit, I'm interested in your sort of broader thoughts on like indie game development and what's going on right now. Obviously the market is in a bit of a tough spot. Have you guys felt that yourselves with regards to the indie space and investment and development? Do you feel as though, because obviously, Lucas, you released Obra Dinn 2018. Do you feel like it's a different market now in the indie space than it was back then? Or do you feel like the dynamics are actually kind of the same and really what's changing is more about what's going on at the sort of AA and AAA level?
I honestly, I don't know. I mean, my Mars is for Playdate, so I'm already in a bubble. But then, like in general, I'm in a like life bubble. I don't because I don't work with publishers. So if I have an idea for a game, I'll just start making it and then release it, kind of thing. So I'm insulated a lot from that. I mean, from what I see, yeah, it's a pretty rough period, and I have friends in AAA and indie friends too, and it's always been kind of weird to me how much money goes into AAA games, how big those games are, and not necessarily, it's the kind of thing where they make so much money, they can be that big kind of thing. So it's kind of like a little bit backwards from how I think about things. Like, first I worry about making it, and then I worry about selling it, I guess. So yeah, I feel, in a lot of ways, I feel very lucky with my situation that, number one, I had the success with Papers, Please and Obra Dinn. And just number two, I can choose my own projects. Now I can decide I can make a game for Playdate, or I can make a weird game that maybe there's no market for it, just because I enjoy the act of making games, and I'm fortunate enough that I can enjoy that, and not have to worry about financial problems with it.
Yeah, nice.
Putting on my Panic publishing hat, which is weird, one of my mini hats. So we were completely spoiled because we published 2 games, Firewatch and Untitled Goose Game, and they were both smash hits, right? So, and we kept telling ourselves, like, they're not all gonna be like this. We have to set our expectations carefully. We also realized, like, it's pretty fun to publish games. It feels good to be the support for someone else, right? Like, we're not telling them what to make. They have control of the games. They own the IP, all that other stuff, but we're like the support structure. We can help do the annoying QA or the console ports or the music licensing, like all the stuff that allows the game developer to just focus on developing the game. And so we kind of made a conscious effort to get more serious about that. We have a lot of games in the pipeline. We have Thank Goodness You're Here, which is this absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, I'm very excited for that one.
Oh, it's so good.
as someone from the north of England, I'm very excited for that one.
Oh man, it is extremely funny and very good. And then Arco, which is like a real-time strategy, kind of our most video gamey game. And then stuff coming out next year. And so like we kind of have like a proper pipeline, including House House's next game, which is Big Walk, and that's like a super interesting game. And so we're in a weird spot where now we have all these bets out there, but none of them, we don't know how any of them are going to do. We don't know. Right now we're not signing anything else because, again, Panic is self-funded. There's no investors. There's none of this stuff. We have to make money in order to spend money. So right now we're kind of in a wait and see approach, just as the industry is feeling really turbulent. And so it's a little stressful. Will these games find their audience? We don't have a huge marketing department. Like, how is that going to work? And there are so many good games coming out every day. How do you stand out? And all of this stuff is a little intense, but all we can do is the best that we can, right? And hope that these things work and find their audience, and then hopefully they're successful and we can fund even more great games for even more years. But it does feel it feels a little weird at this exact moment. Discoverability, I think, is really bad in the stores. Yeah. The stores are just a mess of garbage. And, I don't know. It's wild. Yeah. So, anyways, please look into our games when they come out.
Well, I mean, that being said, and given the way the market is looking right now, what advice would you give to indie developers who are kind of coming out into the world of game development as it is right now?
I would. That's a really good question, because we're getting pitches every day, and there's a lot of really great games. It's very painful because there's so many that we would want to publish if we could. So there's clearly incredibly talented people making amazing games. I would probably say, generally speaking, scope and ambition to keep, from my perspective, keeping that in check. A really simple game that does its thing well is probably a much smarter investment than trying to do a sprawling epic that may or may not resonate with people. And I think we see a lot of things that are very ambitious and very complicated, but that's a little nerve-wracking in terms of like investment and bets. I don't know. It's hard but I also like a Firewatch kind of game, and I don't think there's a lot of narrative first-person games these days, right? They've kind of fallen out of fashion. It's like a Balatro world. Sure. Speaking of Lua, actually, Lucas, that's kind of amazing that whole game was made in Lua.
Is it really? Okay,
really?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Somebody figured out that, of course, you can just open up the bundle and there's the Lua code sitting in there. And there's a whole discussion about how the main game loop is just like a whole series of switch statements or whatever. Anyways, you should check it out at some point. But yeah, I don't know. I think but I mean, this is from the perspective of a really small publisher. We are not like Devolver or Annapurna or any of this stuff. They have way more resources than we'll ever have. So, but I do think, staying focused, scope creep, and all the grandeur can be dangerous when you're just starting out and trying to find your footing. Yeah.
Lucas, what about you?
What about you? From Sorry, Luke.
Oh, I was asking the same question as you.
Was that a horrible answer, Lucas, or am I on the right?
No. You missed the obvious answer though, which is roguelike deck builder.
Perfect. Nice. Very nice.
No, I mean, for me, it has to stand out. It's got to be something, indie, you think about the limitations that indie has, but for me, it's really sets me free. It's the kind of thing where it lets me make a game about checking passports or opening a window at a community center. Those are the kind of games that I can make because I'm indie. And that's the kind of the advantage that indie has, is to reach outside with what you see from AAA and AA and III and other developers and think like, how can I make a game for me that I like, that's different, that is going to stand out? If you want a game about this thing, you come to me because I'm the only one making that thing. And I think, with Unity and, Unity before, maybe a little more now, and Playdate and things like that, making games is very accessible now. And it doesn't mean you need to make a Final Fantasy only better or, a roguelike deck builder only better. It means you can make anything you want. And the more people that are making games, the more personal, unique games you get. And for me, that's kind of the draw of indie and what I like to see when I play a game. I mean, I enjoy AAA stuff too, of course, but I'm really turned on by games like Storyteller or these different kind of approaches to interactivity, basically. So that's my advice. And please don't take it because I got super, super lucky when I did that. And that's no guarantee.
Yeah. So, I mean, sorry, Jake, you go.
I was going to jump to Cable. I want to know what's next for Playdate. If we're talking future, like, are you guys doing like a Rumble pack or what?
Actually, a memory expansion pack, I think. We're going to. You can finally play Donkey Kong 64 on your Playdate. So right now we're like super focused on, okay, we built this incredible foundation. Now let's like get it to as many people as possible. Like, there's a lot of people that have never heard of Playdate. That have no idea that it exists because we've never advertised or done like proper marketing. It's all word of mouth, right? And with the stuff that we can do. So, I think that there will probably be some actual capital M marketing attempts, which is going to be weird for us. And I think that we just want it to grow. The more people that have Playdates, the more people are buying stuff in catalog, the more people are incentivized to make games for Playdate. Although probably that's not the incentive, just making the thing is usually the incentive. But anyways, there's a lot of focus on growth. Let's see, what other little things we have a new cover coming out soon that I won't spoil. It's very funny and good. So that's a thing that we'll be sending out to our mailing list. We're in classic Panic style. There was a bit of drama with Shopify earlier this year, and that's like a whole nother podcast. And so, of course, our answer to that is we'll just write our own e-commerce store. And so that's what we're doing right now so that we can get off of Shopify. So the second we're on our store, then we'll add some more stuff to the store. And then, there's more stuff we want to do with it. So I hope that we can keep going for as long as possible. I always joke Panic in general seems to be like until we run out of ideas or until we run out of money. Those are like the two possible ends to our company. And so we'll just keep making stuff. I feel like this year in particular, it feels like the momentum of Playdate feels strong. It took a couple years to build up, people to get the units, and we fulfill all the pre-orders, and cool things have started happening now, and like, I don't know if you just saw someone's porting Wipeout to the Playdate, like the original PS1.
I did not say that.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Wireframe 3D racing game on the. It's just amazing. So there's always something like that every week, and that's my favorite part about this project, and that is what excites us and keeps us going, and want to just make this thing a platform, never a Switch or PS5. We know we're over here. We have no delusions of grandeur that we're over here. But I think that we've shown that there's a spirit of this thing that people find interesting. So hopefully people keep finding it interesting. Yeah.
Awesome. And Lucas, any hints on what you might be working on next? Have you got an idea what you're working on next?
I have, some vague ideas, but I'm in the very early kind of feeling it out stage right now.
Right.
Yeah, nothing.
Anything you might be willing to share with us? Is
Papers,
any
please,
hints or
too.
clues or
Open
nothing?
world. Come on, open world papers, please.
I've made a mistake where I talked too soon about something and committed the next 3 years of my life to it. So I think I'll just hold on to it a little bit longer. Sorry.
Sure.
Exclusively Atari Jaguar, right? Is that what you said earlier? Yeah. Cool. Mike for that.
Cool. All right. Well, look, thank you both so much for joining us. Really fantastic chat. Really great to know that Playdate is doing as well as it is, and really excited for the future. And yeah, Mars After Midnight, it's super fun. Like I said, it's just a surprisingly great time. So if you manage to get your hands on a Playdate, make sure you then get Mars After Midnight. You'll enjoy yourself. So thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
All the best, and hopefully we stay in touch.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you guys. Bye.
It is getting hot in the US for summer. Are you ready to soak up those summer vibes and unveil your ultimate beach bod? Well, you're in luck, because our friends over at Manscaped have you covered from head to toe. With the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, I can't do it.
This is too rough. This is awful. Okay, listen.
This ultimate all-in-one grooming kit is set to have you looking and feeling your best in the summer sun. Trust Manscaped and unlock the confidence you need to turn heads this season. Join 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with code FRIENDS. Let's make this summer the smoothest one yet. This is sad for me to read this because we're about to go into winter here, actually. So
I was about to say, you look pretty tanned, Ralph.
Well, it's the lighting. I worked on it. It's like, how the lighting, you can make it yellow or white. I'll just jack that yellow side of things. You know what I mean?
Don't worry, guys. I'm going to be smooth for the summer. Specifically,
for all the times you go to the beach, Jake.
all 2 times. But seriously, the Lawnmower 3.0 Plus, the 4.0 Pro, and the 5.0 Ultra. It's just a good family of products for cleaning up the downstairs nether regions, because you can't be reckless down there. You have to take advantage of all of Manscaped's features, essentially, to be able to be safe down there and be cleaned up.
Totally. I've used the 3.0 and then I upgraded to the 5.0 Ultra recently. It's a razor. Very happy with it. It recharges very easily. It has like a nice little dock. It's waterproof, used in the shower, and just makes things very easy and seamless. And it's nice. It's nice to feel presentable.
Clean? I was going to say smooth.
Presentable, like, maybe is what we can go with. I don't know. I don't know the terminology we might employ, but you know what I'm talking about. It's just good to feel like you're taking care of things down there. That's all.
And I like that the trimmers come with a travel case. I've been traveling a lot lately, so to have that has been very clutch. It's a nice, simple little traveling case, but I'm able to like fit it in my carry-on and be good to go.
Sure.
Well, you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code FRIENDS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code FRIENDS at manscaped.com. Manscaped, thank you so much for sponsoring this week's episode. All right, we've got another user question. This one is from Colin. As journalists, strike through YouTubers,
senior video producers.
I understand it can be common to have a sort of breakthrough piece of media. I know the first video by Skill Up I watched was the Nier Automata review. I remember seeing Lucy a lot on GameSpot and only recently discovered Jake, the superior Jake, Colin's words, through this podcast. In that same vein, what are some instances of games media coverage you have all made that have felt the most impactful to you personally or to your career? And do you hold positive feelings towards the subject of that media? In essence, what are some game discussions you've had or game reviews that you've written that are most near, N-I-E-R, see what you did there, to your hearts? Sincerely, Colin. Hashtag, P.S. Hashtag Outer Wilds Game of the Year forever.
Yeah.
Did you write this, Ralph?
Yeah, right? I did not write this question. Gassing up my coverage and giving me a chance to gas up my own coverage even more. That's right.
Yeah, I'm not good at like talking about myself. For me, I think one of the things was the before you buy for Anthem, where for me it was a challenge to just step up my vocabulary and how I talk about games and how I describe games I dislike. Because I saw the playing field and I saw the lead up to Anthem, and I wanted to be the one that put something out there because I knew the video was going to go really big. I wanted to be able to put it out there and kind of like make a statement on like talking about a video game that I really, really don't like as an adult and using the proper words to describe it and like really take apart why I don't like the game. And I had been doing that before, but I knew Anthem, with how much of a disappointment it was, I had to really step up my language and my videos and stuff like that. And looking back, you don't really notice it. It was really something for me. And maybe it was more of a mindset change, but I'm still proud of that video. The only other thing for me, I guess it comes back to before you buy, putting out the video on Death Stranding and seeing it go, like, it was like trending. It's like the first thing that comes up when you just search the word Death Stranding. And for me, that was wild because it was like, obviously a lot of new eyeballs were coming in, a lot of new people. But for me, I don't want to get like teary eyed, but it's like, I started doing this because of Metal Gear Solid. Like when I played Metal Gear Solid and I was so enthralled with video games, I just wanted to talk about them. So to make a video about the guy's game years and years and years later and have it pop off was like a really special feeling. And like, I'm so grateful for that. It's so weird.
That's awesome. What was the first before you buy? Because I think that's how I found out about GameRanks. Was
the
from
first
that series.
one was for Arkham Knight. It was for Batman Arkham Knight, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, we got to put some gameplay on this channel. Like, let's do like this type of thing. And I was playing and recording at the same time.
Oh wow,
and it's awful.
But that was that era. One. You remember when people were like vlogging while playing Call of Duty?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was like that was the thing.
Sure.
Oh man,
you were on brand.
Yeah.
Alanah, what's yours?
Yeah, I have trouble answering that. I mean, I had a few things that I wrote, front page Reddit, whatever, and it was always deep dive developer stuff. Like there was a thing that I wrote where I interviewed, I don't even remember how many, like 60 game developers for IGN about games as service. And also like the idea of if YouTube or YouTubers or content creators were hurting game development. And those were like cool, but if I think of things that like had a big impact on my career, I have trouble answering that. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, anything where I talk about working at IGN, or like dispelling just kind of nonsense conspiracy theories tends to be the stuff that I feel like I've shaped my community around. Is like, I know that I'm saying a thing you don't want to hear, or most people don't want to hear. But also I have this knowledge because I worked there. Let me tell you about that. And I think those videos probably shaped a lot of the community that I have, and the kind of stuff that I try to do going forward is like, even if I know people are going to be mad at me for whatever I'm about to say, I think it's better to still say, hey, this conspiracy theory that's taking off on the internet is horseshit. The Game Awards is not voted by Jeff Keighley. And it's like, I'll probably be fighting that fight for the rest of my life because there is always a new conspiracy theory. But yeah, so I think my most viewed channel is a truth about 10 out of 10 game reviews, IGN, which really just boils down to the people really liked the game you didn't like, and that's it. But yeah, that stuff probably shaped the way I make content. How about you?
Me? Mm-hmm. I would say, so one of the videos is one that neither of them actually are things that I've made, but I've appeared in, and I'm very proud of doing so. So years ago, I think it must have been like 2013, 14, Danny O'Dwyer made a video about like depression in video games. He interviewed me for that. And then RKG made a series about how gaming can help mental health. And I was in an episode talking about being super depressed, and I like it's weird to talk about sincerely because it is just a part of me. Like I have had anxiety and depression for I think I was like officially diagnosed when I was a teenager, but I've always been a very anxious person, and I'm much better at not hiding it, because I genuinely fundamentally think that if you are feeling super depressed, like it's very difficult to do, but I find it really helps to talk to people. And also, like, people can't, like, it's your mental health is not your fault. It is your responsibility, though. And so I think as I've gotten older and I've become more sure of myself, I have tried to use my platform to talk about that stuff. I don't bring it up all the time. I don't want to be, oh, it's Lucy, the depressed gamer. You know, I don't want that to be my brand, but I'm happily talk about it openly. And doing those 2 videos has been really important to me, because even now I also get DMs from people being like, oh, I stumbled across this and I'm really happy that you spoke out about it because it helped me in some way. And so I don't think I would do a video like by myself, but I'm really happy to contribute to that and just like talk about it in a way that, I mean, one of them was just us playing Red Dead Online, like just talking about, you know, pretty heavy subjects, but it's cathartic in a way. And if it helps other people in it, you know, it's kind of doing a job. And so I'm very proud of those. So that's probably mine.
Great answer.
Yeah.
How do you follow that, Ralph?
Yeah,
Beat what Lucy just said. Go.
Jesus. Leave somewhere to go, Lucy. Come on.
Sorry.
I feel like, yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think there's 2 sides to being a critic, and it's sort of like helping people find stuff that's really good that they weren't expecting.
Yeah.
And also highlighting different dimensions in discussions that weren't already highlighted, right? So for example, you know, like Warframe was already huge before I did a video on it, but then I did a video on it and like I helped, you know, bring some more players to the game, and a lot of people were like, hey, this is cool. And I was like, that's really rewarding when you do that, when you can like put something in front of people that they maybe heard a little bit about, but then they watch your video and they're like, wow, actually no. And then they come to it and they're like, this is amazing. And, you know, certainly with some indie games that I've covered as well, like that sort of thing happens. It's very rewarding to help people discover stuff that they haven't seen before, and really, and yeah, so that's really rewarding. That's the best part of the job, really, ultimately. But at the same time, I also really like broadening the conversation about a video game, you know, and I think something like Deathloop is a good example. That's a video I'm pretty proud of. Not because I'm like, oh, I proved Deathloop sucks. That was not it, right? But like, I just had a different perspective on Deathloop that I don't think was really kind of out there very broadly. And I was really happy with the way that I kind of framed that to be like, well, actually, here's some things that I don't like about Deathloop, and I think there's some problems here, and X, Y, Z, and whatever else, right? And I think that was like constructive criticism, you know, that I know that, you know, like Arcane received well, you know, because I've spoken to them in the past about it, and they're like, you know, it's fine. And when you can kind of frame criticism in that way, where you're highlighting stuff in a way that, as I said, yeah, is constructive, I think that's a really great spot to land. And
it's,
you know,
it's always so much easier not to. It's easier to just be like, fuck you, this sucks. Like, it is harder to do that, right? Like,
and it took me time to learn how to do that. Yeah, that's definitely true. It definitely took me time to learn that balance, right? And I definitely talk about games very differently these days than I used to, you know, but I think it's better, you know, like Final Fantasy 16 is a good example where it's like, again, I've got some very different opinions on that game to the majority of the critical consensus that dropped at the time of launch, you know what I mean? But you know, presented in a way that I was really happy with, and that, you know, that I look back on and I'm like, okay, cool. So again, it's never about like proving a game sucks. It's just about like putting your own perspective forward. And if that perspective can broaden the conversation in the way a game is talked about, then I think that's a good thing. Because I really like genuinely care a lot about like games criticism and just like discussion. Like, that's a weird thing to care about, but I actually do, because I just find it so fascinating. Like, as much as I enjoy playing games, I also enjoy talking about them and listening to different perspectives on them. And so I think if I can contribute to that in some way that's at all meaningful, then I'm always really proud of that contribution. So those sorts of videos I look back on really fondly. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much for your question.
Yeah.
Colin, that was lovely.
Yeah.
Nice little trip down memory lane for everyone. Right, moving on then to what we've been playing. So Ralph and Jake, you're both playing the same thing.
Hell yeah. We got good taste. That's
Just
why.
two boys just doing the thing on the grind.
That's right.
What you playing?
Two dudes playing Stellar Blade.
Yeah, two adult ass men playing Stellar Blade. Silently in their rooms with the door shut.
That's right.
Headphones on.
Enjoying the plots.
So I have not played the demo for it. I have it installed and ready to go, but I've been playing other things. So how's your experience with Stellar Blade?
It's pretty
what do you
fucking
think?
good,
what do you think, Jake? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I talked to you guys when I first experienced the game, I was like, I don't want this. I don't like this. I think it gets significantly better after the demo. And then it really starts to open things up. And I was pretty hooked. I realized it was like the right blend of combat, just the right blend of challenge that just really, it got me. And that is, I mean, I'm not into the story or really anything really much else going on. But in terms of vibe and combat satisfaction, really, that's the biggest thing. That's what got me through it and kind of surprised me. And now I'm like a Stellar Blade guy. When I went into it being like, I don't know, this is the butt lady. Yeah, that might be cool. And now I'm like, yeah, man, you should play it.
Butt lady is cool.
Butt lady is cool. Yeah. I mean, she's not very cool. She's nothing going on.
Yeah, I heard she's pretty boring.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A real bummer.
Yeah.
It's a real, but the whole game is kind of, interesting, like you say, like you're a Stellar Blade guy. And it's like, do you think you can reach that point with because I feel like Stellar Blade is a cool game that you'd play and then be like, yeah, it's a cool game, you can play, go for it, whatever. And then you kind of just immediately forget about it almost because it is so absent vibes and like proper.
Wait, like
absent in vibes?
Yeah, like it doesn't have atmosphere.
Like that's, I like the vibe.
Well, see, I just agree with that. For me personally, I feel it really does feel like it's trying to combine all of these different things, particularly Nier Automata. Like it's trying to do a lot of Nier Automata all the time. And it's kind of like when it's not trying to just copy that, it's not really got much else going on. And like, again, it's like, would you... Yeah, so does this game really kind of like pierce you and make you think, shit, man, this means something to me? I don't think it still is the kind of game that means something to people.
But it doesn't need to, though, right?
Well, no, it doesn't need to, of course. But like, you can play something like Bayonetta, for example, and like, it's quite similar in some aspects because it's sort of character action and like.
But Bayonetta, you can make your identity. Like you can be like.
That's what I'm saying.
Be into it.
You did say you're a Stellar Blade guy, though.
So Stellar Blade guy, and the way you break it down for me, it's like I really like the combat, and I'm like, fuck yeah, I love this combat. But I said in my video that it's not, because of the mishmash that it really is, like what you said. Is it post-apocalyptic sci-fi? Like, is it just like a sexy lady simulator? Is it Nier Automata? Like, because there's nothing else there. Like, I'm not going to put a poster on my wall of like the game, not because of her being gorgeous, but I just mean like the game itself. Like, I'm not in love with the lore or the world because there isn't a world. There isn't really
exactly
enough there for
Does
me.
it not even have like, again, if it's like, it seems like it's pretty blatantly, because I've also not played it, but definitely intend to. It's blatantly trying to be like Nier. Does it not even have like the weird quirky little towns or the music? Like they didn't do that stuff?
No, but that's the thing. They have quirky towns, but all the NPCs are so lifeless, have no personality whatsoever.
It's a writing issue?
It's a big writing issue. But even on the music, for example, they actually hired the same composer from Nier Automata, Kiichi Okabe, his production studio. 40% of the music for the game comes from his studio, and it sounds one-to-one with Nier Automata. There is other music that sounds distinct to this game, for sure. But there's a lot of it that just sounds really Nier. And the story as well, like cribs massive sections directly from Nier, like massive story beats. They're like, well, I did the same thing over there. The overall kind of vibe and aesthetic of it is too similar. So for me personally, it's just because I'm seeing all this stuff as I was playing it, I was distracted by how much it was Nier Automata. And I don't actually think they went, other than trying to copy that, they weren't really trying to create their own thing. They weren't trying to create their own unique story. They weren't trying to create their own unique characters. They a lot of the time weren't trying to create their own unique music. And so for that reason, yeah, I actually liked the game for sure. Like I played it, finished it, you know, combat was great. I actually like some of the open worldy stuff. It's very low key, but it worked for me.
Yeah.
But I just feel nothing for Stellar Blade. I have no affection for Stellar Blade because I think in absence of those things, you just finish a game, then you walk away from it. It's like, you're right. It doesn't have to, but it feels like this is the kind of game that should. Like this is not just some, like Evil West, for example, right? You remember, you guys ever play Evil West?
Oh, yeah.
Played Evil West.
Right. Yeah. That's a cool game. And that's not really trying to like make you feel things and stick with you. And you're not really meant to think about that game a lot when you've finished it because it's a dumb vampire cowboy game with, God of War combat, whatever. But this one, it feels like it kind of wants you to feel those things. It's it's reaching for this identity or these vibes, but it just can't grasp them. And it feels like a real fumble as a result of that,
So because it's trying, it feels more fake.
Yeah, I think that's it. But I think in addition to that, the fact that it is just cribbing so much from Nier Automata kind of annoys me. And I'm like, I get why this is good. I get because obviously they're really inspired by that work. And I understand that completely. I think, they obviously wanted to make something that was loving homage to that inspiration point. But I think there's a point where it goes too far and it's kind of just like, all right, how about you do some of your own stuff though? You know what I mean? And it definitely did that on the gameplay side, but on the non-gameplay side, it was too much for me. So
yeah, I think that for me, it was a lot of like, I don't always need to like have a big epiphany about something. I can just be having fun killing stuff. And I went with that. But it's interesting that it almost got me thinking like what you were saying before, like, there are sometimes movies on Netflix that are these massive budget, incredible productions with all this power behind it. And you watch it and you are entertained and then you never think about it again. Like Ralph, the one with Ryan Gosling.
I'm watching it this week and I'm so excited. I'm so pumped.
I just watched the J-Lo movie.
Oh my God, isn't it?
The J-Lo movie. Oh
awesome.
My.
Wow, what a powerhouse!
What a thing that was made.
By J-Lo.
But I think you're right, Jake, that like sometimes you can have popcorn movies, and I feel the same way about popcorn games. But I think that like Ralph's issue with it, even though like again it's still something you played and finished, right, makes sense to me because you feel like it's trying to pretend it has more than that. Like a game like Vampire Survivor is technically a popcorn game, but that stuck with me pretty hard because the popcorn is just trying to be popcorn and it tastes so good. Whereas like I get like it feels odd when you feel like something is trying to pretend like it's something else but not executing on it well. Like it can be more off-putting because they even tried. Like why do I keep making analogies? I was going to be like, the popcorn's not buttered, but like, what am I talking about? I'm going to shoot myself in the
face. Yeah. Taco Bell.
In terms of, I mean, we've kind of got like a little theme going because you guys have also been playing No Rest for the Wicked. I've been playing Another Crab's Treasure, which are both Souls-likes in their own forms. I'll go with Another Crab's Treasure because I think to your point, Ralph, about like it doing all these things to try and ape something else and not being successful, not standing out in any way by itself or being memorable. I think Another Crab's Treasure is really successful at like borrowing a lot from Souls. I mean, there is a whole area called the Sands Between. Like there are jokes in there. There are references. There are moves that are. There's one. So for context, Another Crab's Treasure is a Souls-like where you play as a little crab, and someone has stolen your shell, like a loan shark, a literal shark, but one of those like toy ones on a little stick, has taken your shell. That's the catalyst. You want it back, and in doing so, you swap out shells, and each shell has a different ability. And you find 3 map pieces, and explore. And there is Souls-like combat. It's tough. It's challenging, but it does so many things that it's like, yes, at the core, it borrows a lot from the Souls games, but it does so much by itself that it succeeds at like extending itself beyond that. So I mean, the main thing for me, I think, is the shell mechanic. So it's also kind of this commentary on dropping garbage into the oceans. Like a lot of the things that you find on the seabed that you can use as shells are things like cans or bottle caps or sometimes a little party hat or a red Solo cup, and each one has a new ability. And you are, unlike Souls, I mean, you can turtle in Souls and, you know, kind of swing and, you know, hide behind your shield. In this one, Souls is way more fun if you are aggressive. And in this one, it's kind of like this mix where it really encourages you to hide in your shell, learn how to parry, and then just you can attack while in your shell and you take way reduced damage. But each shell, because it has a new ability, like one of them will be like give you a shot of espresso because it's a little teacup and it means all your attacks are faster. Or one of them will send out little bubbles that are homing missiles that will attack things. And
clever stuff.
It's really clever.
The game looks really good.
It looks great, and it feels so fun to scuttle around as that little crab. And there's platforming sections too, and there is humor to it. It is so funny.
Those boys, they're laugh. Because I met them last year at Summer Games. They're good bands.
The game is also really funny. Like I was on the besties last week, so if you heard me talk about this game, I'm going to be saying a lot of the same stuff. But like my favorite joke in it is there is an I can't believe it's not butter, but it's called like, oh my God, if this isn't butter, I'm going to lose it. Which I just really enjoy, like all these little incidental jokes. And then there's kind of this zany cast of characters. And instead of, you know, like Dark Souls NPCs, which are, you know, leading you on in a kind of murky way, you know, they're all just funny little weirdos. And I would say there are some bits that I don't vibe with as much as like, I actually think the difficulty is kind of maybe a little too much, but they have accessibility options, so I just turned it down. I didn't go down to the one where you can give Krill a gun, which is like you know, if you really just want to blitzer, you can give your crab a gun.
It's Jake mode. Put a gun in a game where there's no gun. Yeah.
But I tuned it down a little bit, and now I'm in a really nice balanced place with it. And yeah, it's just colorful. It feels really good.
Is there character progression, and is there like a Firelink shrine? Like what's the equivalent in this?
So there are moon snails and little currents that you touch, and those are basically bonfires where you level up, and you do teleport to essentially Firelink Shrine. It is the moon snails like domain, and that's where you do your upgrades. And some of them are, I mean, one of them is the health recovery mechanic from Bloodborne. If you are in your shell and you take damage and you attack back straight away, you can regain the shell health.
I love that mechanic.
And there's another one. I didn't unlock this one actually by the time I'd played it last week, but Ross from the Besties was like, there is one where you attack another shell and it just gets put on your sword, which is a fork, and then you just basically have a hammer. And I started doing that, and oh my God, it's just like the best time. And so at the beginning of the game, I was like, oh, is this just like another Souls-like? And now I'm fully, you know, like the music is great. The vibes are great. I know it's also not like a really long game. I think it's about 15 hours roughly. I was like,
that's still longer than I expected for that game. I really, when I saw it, I'm like, this feels like a 6 to 7 hour game. Like 15 hours is a lot longer than I thought.
I'm at 8 hours now, and I've just got like one map piece, but I did do a lot of scuttling around and exploring. Got it. But it's great. And so in terms of, you know, games what are like other games, I think this one's a real success story, and they've also like sold 100,000 units really quickly, and I think that's a really cool like success story for that studio. So
was it on this podcast that we discussed the hermit crab video? We discussed that here. Have you guys ever seen the video about hermit crabs and how they share their shells? Have you ever seen this before?
No.
Oh my God, I'm gonna blow your mind. Okay, we're not gonna watch it now.
Okay.
But we're going to check in on this next week, and you're going to tell me if your mind has been blown or not.
Okay.
Go look up hermit crab shell video or whatever, and you will learn how hermit crabs share their shells. And it is unbelievable. Like, your jaw is on the floor this entire video.
Is it the BBC Earth crabs trade shells in the strangest way?
Yes.
Okay, I'll save that for watching.
I'm so intrigued because it sounds very basic. So
it is, but it's so civilized. Long story short, hermit crabs get in a fucking line and then they all try on the shells to see which one fits them best. And they all trade up based upon their needs. What? And that is how they do it.
Dirty fucking communists. It's disgusting.
Right. Socialist shell sharing.
That's very socialist of them.
Damn it.
God, no.
So it is unbelievable though. When you see it, you're just like, there's no way that this is how it actually happens, but it is how it happens. And then there's a sad bit at the end where someone gets like, their shell gets snaked at the very last second. You're like, fuck you, man. You pushed in. That's not fair. You give him his shell.
That is terrible.
I have never seen your face light up more.
As talking about hermit crabs.
You don't understand how good this video
Changed
is.
His life. It's formative.
Unbelievable. It's just that there's like nature is just, you see these things, you're like, how is this a thing that I never knew happened? And you're like, there it is.
Hell yeah.
Anyway.
Is a naturist the same as a nudist?
What?
No, but
what are you talking about?
But I like where your head's at.
Goodbye. Alanah, what have you been playing?
I mentioned it at the start of the show, but I've been playing Dragon's Dogma 2. I'm a very big Dragon's Dogma fan. I was very surprised when Dragon's Dogma 2 got anywhere near as much attention as it did on launch for the microtransaction stuff, because I was like, nobody gives a shit about these games. And the microtransactions are all really gross and, in my opinion, like huge accessibility problems more than anything. Like, it's crazy those things aren't accessibility options. But that said, I really love it. I love Dragon's Dogma. The second game is a lot like the first game. It's so weird. I love the way everybody speaks. There's a lot of lore. It's just so easy to get lost in this stupid fancy world. And I think my favorite thing about Dragon's Dogma, which is like also not dissimilar to your Souls-likes, is the journeying. Like, sometimes you just got to go from one checkpoint to another checkpoint, and it's a huge road. And you could take an ox cart. Somebody's going to attack it, though. But the stuff you come across on that journey, where 1 minute it's like, oh, me and my pawns will take this out in 2 seconds. And then the next minute it's something with 5 health bars, and you're like, Jesus Christ. And you'll try maybe, and then just eat everything you've picked up along the way, nervously scrambling, and one pawn's dead, and you got to go resurrect them, and the other one dies, and then you try and run away. Then a dragon finds you. Like, it's the chaos of the in-between moments of Dragon's Dogma that really get me. I feel like I never know what I'm going to find. And it's a feeling that, like, I don't think I feel in a lot of games outside of, like, I feel like Sekiro is probably like number one on that for me, of like turning a corner and being like, whoa, Dragon's Dogma is that, but it just spams an ogre at you. And I just really, really love that feeling. The journey of Dragon's Dogma 2 to me is super fun. And I love that I'm panicked half the time about everybody dying, and you only have a certain amount of revives, and you have to really think about where you're going to use them and when. And like, I totally wasted 2 earlier today. And I was like, I should, and I'm still thinking about it. I was like, I shouldn't have used them. Why did I use them there? That was really dumb. It's just a lot of secrets. So it's like, there's this part of the game that is politics in the cities, where, again, I love the characters. I think everyone is ridiculous, and that makes it very fun. And then the journeys in between the cities that are almost 2 separate games. And I just love both of them. I think there's a lot of stuff wrong with it. Like I said, it's janky in a bunch of ways. The microtransaction stuff really sucks. Obviously, a trend Capcom's been following for a pretty long time now, and it's such a bummer to see it. They even had it in the first Dragon's Dogma when they had stuff like that. But yeah, it's just something about them. The personality of those games is just like right up my alley. So I'm really enjoying it and trying to play through it as slowly as I can before Elden Ring. So like that I don't just get like fully RPG burnt out, like especially like a high fantasy RPG. I might have to like play the DLC a little later, but yeah, that's mostly what I'm playing right now. Also a little bit of Topspin, which is also pretty great.
Yeah,
oh, man. I want to play
some reviews. I saw some reviews and they're positive.
I've ever played a Topspin, but I've
played the original.
All very good.
Back in the day.
The original on Xbox was so good.
Yeah.
I don't even know what tennis is, but it's great. It's so much fun.
It's Topspin is invented tennis, actually. So I think you're fine. Yeah, nothing to worry about there. But I guess the only thing that is like a common criticism that I didn't really notice, because I don't know that much about tennis either, is there aren't a lot of, I don't want to say players. There aren't a lot of
like famous?
There's not a lot of variety in players. Yeah.
Okay.
But otherwise, like, it's great. It feels really good to play. It's super fun.
I only know Venus and Serena and Johnny McEnroe. Those are the only tennis players I know.
That's all you need. You're fine.
They've got, I mean, they've got.
You don't know Leighton Hewitt?
Sampras.
Leighton Hewitt.
Leighton Hewitt, mate.
Andy Roddick.
Yeah, Andy Roddick.
I used to be big into tennis. But like,
did you play tennis? Did you have a tennis arc?
I did. And then I worked at a tennis club.
No way.
Yeah, that was
who is this? Alternate universe Lucy is still like working at a tennis club.
Right, stringing rackets.
Yeah.
Never stringing rackets. I was a cleaner and a receptionist basically. At the Lawn and Tennis Association in.
Oh, that's so funny. You know, when you describe that period of life, I pictured you like courtside, like just frowning, covered in suntan lotion with a hat, collecting the ball.
I was collecting. No, the thing is, and preview for my show and tell is that I saw challenges. Nice. Is that I was, I was. That film covers, you know, them, two of the characters as they're like boys, and they're in that boys tennis where it's like the 16-year-old kind of arc, and the people that would come and stay at this tennis club, because it was a place where all the pros would just literally live for a bit, would be the 15 to 16-year-old boys. And there would be 4 of them to a room, and they would put wet towels on the bed. And there would be 4 15 to 16-year-old boys in one tiny room in bunk beds. And it was just, wow. Not a great time, not a great place to clean. Let me tell you that for free. So, anyway.
Wow. Every time I get new Deep Lucy lore, it's always like, whoa.
And there was cum everywhere.
Do we need to edit this out of the podcast in post or what?
I don't think so. I hope not. I just put podcast in, zone out, gloves on.
Damn.
Anyway, top spin.
Wow. Top spin's great though. Top spin's great.
Top spin is great though. And challenges too, apparently. But I guess we'll talk more about that later.
Oh, we will talk about that.
Right. But
Ralph, then
back to you, actually, just to drag his Dogma thing. I think it's a really fun game to just play and then not worry about like the discourse and the stuff around it
100%.
Because there's so many problems with that game. That it's kind of like, if you really want to get into the weeds, you can have like these massive conversations about like X, Y, and Z, and you know, balance and repetitiveness and enemy design and like convenience and friction and blah blah blah. But then it's just like, dude, game's fun. Like it is. You know what I mean? And
you have to like click opt out for sure. All those issues are there. It'd be crazy to act like they aren't.
But that's what I found so interesting when the initial crop of reviews, I was really surprised because I think they were just so positive and they really didn't talk much about so many of the game's shortcomings. You know, critical reception was really strong, and I think it landed on like an 85 on OpenCritic or something, or that thereabouts. And it's kind of like, I don't know, man, that number seems pretty high for a game that's got some pretty serious issues. And I don't know, that was an interesting facet of the release for me, because I'm like, when I played it,
it's one of those ones where you could see critics doing what I'm doing, which is just getting lost in it. And when you get lost in it, which I do think that world lends itself really well to, the things that are obviously wrong with it don't bother you as much.
Yeah.
So it's like they're there. I can't give it 100, but like, how much do I care that they're there? And it's like, if I were to write down a list of cons, the list of cons would be huge, but I could put crosses next to a lot of them and be like, I don't care that much. Like probably most of them, you know, but they're certainly there.
For sure. No, I totally agree. I landed very much in the same place, but I guess the reviews that I had seen didn't really list those cons. They were just kind of like, it was more just the pros. And so I was really quite genuinely surprised to discover just how many things in this game were like not working properly. You know what I mean? But at the end, I landed exactly the same place where I'm like, you know what? I don't really care about any of that stuff because this is a really fun video game. And the journeying for me was the main thing as well. So like fun. It is
I love it
very few games manage to get that right. Like that Skyrim and Morrowind and Elden Ring, you know, like a sense of true journeying across space. You know, Death Stranding was the same thing. You know, it's a journey, and it's just about like one foot in front of the other.
And the camping, like the fact that there's like a little camping that you just have to find a camp and camp out with your friends and hope your camp doesn't get attacked is like, there's just so many little bits of fun to be had in that journey. Especially, I think the pawn system is so unique too, and like ties into that so well. And the fact that these pawns are really just little AIs running around NPCs, but that I hate some of them. Like, get rid of this asshole. But they're all like the same guy, really,
so
just slightly changed out.
they would just jump off a cliff, and you're like, come on, man.
I've only had that happen to me one
They
time.
would just kill themselves all of a sudden. You're like, now I got to go to a stone. I got to buy a new one. It's just,
I just lost a guy yesterday. He just I assume probably fell off a cliff.
just vanish, some of them, don't they? Yeah.
But again, I kind of love that about it because I'm like, there's kind of supposed to be.
Sure.
Look, no, the issues are there.
The dude at the party who just ghosts without saying goodbye, like that's. But
the pawns are sort of supposed to be dumb, so like when they are, it's very inconvenient but funny. I think I don't know.
Is that why they're called pawns and not like companions?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're definitely literally just like you press button, they do the thing that you want them to, and they all just tell you how great you are all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Sometimes they judge me though. They'll be like I have average carry weight, and they're like, "Are you sure, my liege, that we could really take on more supplies?" I'm like, it's literally my pack's not even that full, dude. Shut up. But I love it. Awesome. I also just love making fun of them. Yeah, it's definitely a flawed game, but there's something about the character and the personality, like the opposite of Stellar Blade. If we take Ralph's take, is like there's a lot of stuff wrong with it that it sounds like there kind of isn't with Stellar Blade, but there's so much atmosphere and personality that I just find really charming. I'm into it.
Jake, you and Ralph have also been playing No Rest for the Wicked.
Ain't no rest for the wicked.
Is this the game that was made by was it Moon Studio?
Yes. Hell yes.
Yeah, it
so actually,
sounds awesome.
Jake, you told us a little bit about Stellar Blade. So Ralph, tell me about No Rest for the Wicked.
Yeah, so really interesting game. Like definitely nothing like Ori, forget that. This is, it is in many aspects an ARPG, so like, similar to Diablo in like a very loose sense. From perspective, it's got like random loot drops, whatever, but it actually plays much closer to a Souls-like. It kind of feels, in terms of the overall combat loop, it's fewer enemies and they have really sophisticated movesets, high HP. Your overall gearing and sort of like moveset is based upon your weapon and all that sort of stuff. There's parrying and dodging, a lot of stamina management, especially early on, where you feel really stamina starved. And like the first boss, you're like, come on, man, just let me fucking hit him. And you just can't. But it is a really, really, really stunning first chapter for this game because it's just launched in early access. And I kind of said in my review that it almost feels like a kind of Hades level event where it's like you play something, you're like, shit, this is like going straight to the top of the pile. It just has so many unique elements. It's so beautifully polished. I mean, I played it a bit later, by the way, because I know there were quite a few technical issues at first that a lot of people encountered. But when I encountered it, it was flawless, right? So a lot of those things had already been patched and the team's been working really fast to pump stuff out. But
which actually, like, just to jump off of that, like that kind of like bummed me out a little bit about like how we tackle games sometimes. Is that like I beeline blasted through it as soon as that thing went live, played through a bunch of stuff, had a couple of things that annoyed me, some technical issues too and stuff like that, some little balancing things. By the time I got my video out, people were like, oh yeah, well that's been fixed. And I'm like, damn. And I already had to like start moving on to the next thing. So I still really liked it, but I knew I would have liked it more, but I still left off with it with you where I was like, damn, they're cooking up something here.
Big time. I mean, this is like it's the level design. First of all, visually, it's unbelievable. Like the art style they've got going on here and how they bring these environments and characters to life is just astounding. Then you've got these cutscenes that kick in. You're like, what the fuck, man? These cutscenes look so good and they're so beautifully voiced and the writing is actually really crisp. Like it's great writing, unexpectedly so. And then you get out into these worlds and they're so vertical. There's so much to discover in them. So you can actually kind of run from one end to the other in like 60 seconds or less. Because they're so multi-layered and so labyrinthine, I mean, you'll spend 3 to 4 hours in each of these areas just like finding out what's going on in them. And there's not like tons of enemies in them either, but the process of exploring them is they're just so dense and it's so rewarding to do it. And they look so beautiful as you do it. Oh man.
So what are you actually doing most of the time when you're playing this game?
So essentially it is
linear.
Yeah, kind of linear, I guess, at this point, right? Because it is easiest to think of it as a Souls-like, I would say, because ARPGs are very much like continuously kill enemies to farm XP and items. Not like that. It's you start over here, get over there. There are lots of twists and turns along the way that you can open up pathways. Once you've got to a certain spot, you can like open up a gate behind you to unlock a shortcut. And then you get to a spot and you're slowly gearing up your character, slowly leveling up, fighting bosses as you go. So I think, as I said, Souls-like in terms of the core loop is the nearest analogy, but the exploration is far more dense than you see in a Souls-like. Obviously, Souls-like exploration matters, sure, but this is another level on top of that almost feels like a 3D platformer at times, because it does have you kind of balancing on beams and jumping across scaffolding and like
shimmying, all kinds of stuff.
All that sort of shit. Like, yeah. And then you get to Sacrament, which is the main town. And there you kind of have to contribute to building projects to like unlock new shops, whatever. And so that means that when you're actually out in the wild, you're also doing resource gathering. So you're like mining ore and chopping down trees and whatever, and you bring those resources back to town to build new things. But at the end of all that, though, this is a campaign that ends, and it does have an end game on top of that. And already in the early access, there's a grindable dungeon called Crucible, which just allows you to grind it out, and it's kind of randomly generated in many aspects, and it has different loot every time. And so it's a game that is trying to provide a single-player narrative-led RPG experience during its campaign, but also have an end game that might appeal to your average ARPG enthusiast. That stuff comes much later, though. It's also going to support 4-player co-op. That's not in there yet. That'll come later. But yeah, we talked about vibes in like the Stellar Blade block. This is just like oozing vibes and style, and this is the kind of game where you walk away from it and you just feel like, wow, I really played something just then. Every part of it just kind of sings almost, like it really does. And
every NPC seems unique. Everyone seems a little interesting. I wanted to learn more about the world. I was really into it.
Yeah.
What a huge change from Ori. Like, I'm just looking at art. It does look so, and I love those games. Like, it looks so different. I always love seeing a studio do something like this.
I mean, it still has the kind of, there's some flourishes that really tie it to Ori's art style for sure. Like, you can see how that's the same studio that's worked on it, but the perspective shift and obviously a number of other changes make it.
Well, I guess Ori's also a little Metroidvania, which sounds like this is like a little bit Metroidvania.
No. This isn't. No. This is definitely not Metroidvania.
The map is not Metroidvania?
No. It's straight up exploration based. It is definitely like just really about getting new items, and those new items give you, like, as in when I say items, I mean like a hat or a sword, and it's a two-handed sword versus a one-handed sword versus a dagger versus a bow and arrow, whatever. So no, nothing Metroidvania in this. When I say platforming, by the way, don't imagine like Ori platforming. I'm really just talking about the fact that this level design has so many layers to it that you don't get this in a Souls-like, for example. It feels very different to that. You also don't get this in ARPGs, because ARPGs are just totally flat, right? You're just walking along like big open fields, killing the goat men or whatever. So, yeah, man, it's like really good. I mean, I don't know when 1.0 is, but I'm going to be stunned if this doesn't like go very large and do very well for itself. Like, and this studio plans for this to be like their main game for the next chunk of time. Like, this is, they're gonna launch 1.0, and then they're planning like live server support. I think is kind of the vibe, but without it being that.
It's
I'm
co-op,
not sure.
Right? It is co-op.
It will be co-op, 4-player.
Not
co-op.
yet.
It will be. Not yet.
Gotcha. And how much of it can you currently play?
You can play through 3 biomes plus the end game, part of the end game dungeon.
It's ultimately considered a first chapter, I think.
Yeah, you'll get through all of that campaign content in about 15-ish hours, depending on your pace. And I think it's worth it, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, I really feel like that asking price that's there now. I've played other games that cost twice that amount and, give me less content, and also are way less rewarding than this is. So everyone's going to have their buy-in price. But I think it's worth grabbing now, play it, and then just kind of forget about it until that 1.0 release. And then you've got a copy of it that you got, because the price will go up later, by the way. So you're getting it cheaper now. Play it now and enjoy it, because you'll have a great time. And then forget about it. And then you'll come back and there'll be this whole thing to enjoy. I think
I'm curious to see what else they can do, because I feel like there's almost like there's a little more that can be done with the stealth. I like that as an option, but it's super bare bones as of right now. And then I'm just still interested in the storytelling, in terms of how much emotional, if it can have emotional impact, how much you really feel like you can impact the story, because a lot of it is characters showing up and saying things to you or at you, or characters doing things and you're not even present. So I'm curious to see how they can take that. But I mean, either way, I'm into it. As soon as I saw the look of the characters from the trailer, when the game was first revealed, I was like in, and now playing it, I'm glad that that's like actually what's going on here. And then like what you said with Ori flourishes, like the quality of animation is like awesome. Like the attack animations, when you have like a heavy weapon, those windups and those impacts are so satisfying. And from watching them to executing them, when feedback and everything, it's really good.
Yeah, I've got it downloaded. I put it on my Steam Deck, but it was when there was still a bunch of issues.
Don't play Steam Deck. Even post that, it's still not. It's not for Steam Deck. It's not. It's too demanding.
I'm looking forward to especially because like I had a little more issues in the first couple days. I'm looking forward to putting it back in the cabinet and coming out and playing it when it's a full release, because I think it's going to be sick as hell.
Yeah, I really think that. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, that's what we've all been playing. Time for a little show and tell of something that's not a video game, and something that we've enjoyed this week. Alanah, what have you enjoyed this week that's not necessarily a video game?
Something I can literally show you. Hang on.
Ooh.
Just sit back for a second. Give me a second.
Show and tell.
Literally.
All right, so I'm going to narrate. She's wheeling away in her chair. She's grabbing something. What is it? A suitcase.
Is it
the Agent 47? Yeah, is it Hitman's briefcase? I'm going to pull out silver ballers.
So I have this big old, very old, literally old briefcase that has an extremely old camera.
Cool. That is sick.
A Sony beta movie. Awesome. It is basically ancient.
Oh my God.
Super cool. Literally taped straight to VHS like this. That's how it records. But I'm in a movie coming up soon and I have to use this, and the director just basically told me to get used to holding it. So I just have to like kind of play around with this thing and like use it. I think it's 80s, 90s, super old. Like it smells old, you know?
I love that.
And yeah, you like literally pop a tape in here. There's a little microphone on. It still works, yeah. There's a zoom down here. Your record button is here. So it's like just this very, very, very cool alt setup. It's got macro lenses, like all of this. Yeah, it's super cool. You've got filters on the side. For the listeners
out there, the audio listeners, it's like the Marty McFly video camera.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Is. Yeah. That I just have to get used to holding, basically. But
that is cool.
Yeah, and I don't know how else to describe what it does. It's just a fucking old video camera. That I've just been playing around with for the last week, and it's like such a cool sort of step back in time that like a lot of the stuff is exactly the same as all the functions that you would have now. They're just a lot harder to implement. Like it still has white balance. It's still a thing that exists on it, but the way that you do it is just so different, and it's something that I never even would have seen beforehand. These are my little, tapes I have to record on.
Yes.
It's really cool. Something that it's just a very fun, like extracurricular activity to be asked to just play with this old ass camera for a while, and it's been very cool.
It's a great display piece. If I had that, I would just leave it out for like on like a coffee table or on top of a shelf. And people are like, "That's sick." I'm like, "I know, right?"
It just looks like retro art, right?
Yeah, it does. It really does. It's aged beautifully.
Yeah, it's super neat. But yeah, part of that, I guess, is like if I give it extra show and tell is I've been getting just a bunch more into film lately. So I've been making stuff, which what this is for, but also just going through like a back catalog of movies that I haven't seen, and have recently watched the entire discography of Terrence Malick. If any of you know him.
Hell yeah.
You have thoughts, Jake?
Tree of Life fans, rise up, man.
So we watched the 3-hour cut of Tree of Life. There is also a theatrical release that apparently makes a lot less sense. I loved Tree of Life, but then he's got this other movie that came out right after Tree of Life called Night of Cups, which is one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Is that the one with Ben Affleck? Or did I imagine that?
I don't think so. It's Christian Bale is the lead.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, all of Terrence Malick movies have really great casts. So his first movie is called Badlands, and it's also fantastic. But then as it goes through, Thin Red Line is maybe one of his more famous movies. Tree of Life is obviously very famous. But a lot of Terrence Malick movies have just like bits where there are just like shots of stuff and maybe some poetry. And Knight of Cups and Song of Songs, which came right after Knight of Cups, they had like no plans for. So this guy who's at this point where he's a very well-known director in the industry, all the actors want to work with him. Thin Red Line, Adrian Brody famously thought that he was the lead, and then the movie comes out and he's in like 2 scenes. But for Knight of Cups and Song of Song, they just went and filmed stuff and kind of didn't even tell. The DP wasn't allowed to see the script. The actors were told to just do things. So they're just like
The Room.
There's less of a story than The Room. Knight of Cups is supposed to be about a screenwriter in Hollywood dealing with Hollywood. None of that comes through at all. It's just shots of Christian Bale. Like, it's just horrendous, and it's a really interesting discography to watch through because like people consider him a really important filmmaker, and like he certainly made things that nobody else would be allowed to make. But you're also kind of watching the decline of somebody because God, some of those movies are so terrible. I'm sure there are people like very big like art house film fans who would defend them, but bit by bit they get less linear, more nonsensical. I mean, Tree of Life has like a bit with a dinosaur, like just CG dinosaur in the middle of the film. It's very weird. You have to like buy in to really get into that movie. Yeah, it's been a very fun, weird journey to watch through all of those, while also like doing some fun filmmaking stuff. But I guess I don't even know if I'd recommend Tree of Life. Would you recommend people watch Tree of Life, Jake?
No.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
It's a tough one. They're all tough.
Yeah.
I could recommend Badlands easily. The others are just really, really strange.
Badlands is like like the Thin Red Line is like movie-ish. Yeah. It's a movie. It's a movie-ass movie.
It is. But even Thin Red Line, again, just has like shots of rainforests and someone saying words that don't have anything to do with the rest of the movie. It's just been really interesting to just, it's basically just friends that I have that are filmmakers who are just like, watch this shit that you otherwise would never watch. And it's been a really, really, really fun journey that I also don't know if I would ever tell anybody else to go on. Way easier one is that I watched Shawshank Redemption for the first time and thought it was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's a big movie to miss for that many years.
I don't even know how I did.
Good one.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm only 15.
Of course.
How dare you? But yes, mostly this really cool camera that I've been having to play around with for the last 2 weeks. It's super cool.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm jealous.
Ralph, what about you?
X-Men 97, man.
Okay, well,
I'm sorry, man.
we talked about it last week.
We talked about it last week, but the last episode, like the eulogy, man, the eulogy is just, I can't. Even right now, I'm thinking about it. I'm getting teary. It's just like, I'm not even exaggerating, by the way. It's that good.
Well, now I finished
Alanah,
Fallout,
are you watching X-Men 97?
No, but my boyfriend's watching it, so I keep hearing about it, but I've not been watching it.
You don't understand. No one understands. This is the best thing that Marvel has done. This is the best X-Men adaptation ever, full stop. I believe that.
Okay.
This is the best thing Marvel has done since like Endgame, right? It's just, it hits unbelievably hard. And I don't believe it's just the nostalgia. Like, I really believe that they've just done something crazy here, right? So,
what makes it stand out?
There is this incredible character work that they are able to do so succinctly. Like, they are able to get you to care about these people and these events so well. And they're able to tell these very political allegories without it seeming like, because obviously X-Men has always been a deeply political thing, right? It is in itself allegory. But
it's always been the outsiders being bullied, right? Like, that's literally.
Well, it's allegory for sort of racism or intolerance or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's always been that, and it manages to tell stories in that space in a way that is so engaging, with always finding the right balance, so that it still reminds itself that it's still a Saturday morning cartoon. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this whole thing isn't meant to be political messaging, but that's a core part of it. It's still meant to be a fun superhero thing about, a dude who can shoot lasers from his eyes. You know what I mean? And the balance that they get between those two things is so on point. But yeah, it really is just the way they've written these characters is great. And plus also like Wolverine is not the main character, and it's unheard of to do an X-Men thing these days without Wolverine being the main character, you know, but they make like Cyclops the main character basically, and he's the boring one, except they make him fucking cool here and he totally rules. So it really is just incredible. But I think related to that, like because I used to collect when I was a kid, right? When I was like in my teen years or whatever, I used to collect a ton of stuff. And I used to, and this is my actual show and tell, I used to always buy from a place in Sydney called King's Comics. This is not a sponsored bit, by the way, just FYI.
Shout out to King's Comics.
But legit shout out to King's Comics, because I just restarted like my standing order there, you know, standing subscription, whatever. And it's just the same as it always was. It's a really fantastic store that's managed by great people who like love what they do. And they like, I don't know, like it's just reconnecting with that space, reconnecting with that business. It really like your local comic book store. Is there like a comic book store near you, Jake?
Oh yeah. I actually just drove past the other day, the one I used to go to as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And is it like, is it like the one in the area? Because it wouldn't be like a ton of comic book stores here, right?
No, there's not a lot.
Yeah. And so you really appreciate these places that exist in this way. And this place has always been, it's called King's Comics. It's always been just a really great, wholesome place that's like loved its community and its customers. And I don't know, just reconnecting with it all these years later in this way has been so rewarding. I don't know. It's just, it's nice that these sorts of businesses that are just for nerds, like that's all they do. They just take care of nerds. You know what I mean? And I love that sort of space exists in that way. It actually is right across the street from the Warhammer shop, or at least I'm not sure if the Warhammer shop's still there actually, but it's kind of like nerd ground zero where you've got like a comic shop opposite a Warhammer
I would say
shop.
that's too much per square foot.
Some zoning errors there.
Yeah.
You got to throw a Foot Locker in there.
There's one in San Francisco called Isotope Comics, and the guy who runs it, I think his name's James, is just like an absolute legend.
Yeah.
He has all of these he has toilet seats on the walls that have been drawn on and signed by famous comic book artists, but he has so many of them on the walls, and like kind of going in, you don't clock them at first. You just, you know, like, there's all the selection of comics and you look and be like, oh, there's a Scott Pilgrim thing by Brian Lee O'Malley on a toilet lid.
That's a good idea.
But
it's like, you know, we buy all that shit digital now. You know what I mean? And it's like, the stores that we buy our stuff from, they're going away. The music stores are gone. Bookstores are going. Game stores are going. You know what I mean? And
man, real theme of this podcast, huh? Real theme of this episode is like I showed you this old off camera. I'm like, we're getting old.
Times. But you know, that's changing, and it's and look, you know, there's never been that many comic book stores around. Don't get me wrong, but it's just nice to have a physical space where you can go to see the thing that you love on a shelf and like buy it and talk to other people about it and talk to someone over the counter who knows about a thing. And I don't know, I love that stuff. And so, yeah, that's what I've been thinking about this week while I've been watching X-Men.
Oh. Well, Jake, you are also in the comics vein, I believe.
Yeah. It's funny to go with Ralph. So what I've been doing is, it's like, you know, you can fight the battle with physical with a lot of this older stuff. So I don't have a pull list. Like I don't read any current comics really every once in a while, but like I don't have something I'm going to a comic book store every week or every month to grab. But I make sure to go as much as possible and buy the trades or the collections and stuff from comic book stores, not like fucking Amazon or whatever. I always try and go and buy them at a place. It costs a little more, but it gives me the feeling of going to a comic book store and buying something. So I've been on kind of like an Iron Man thing lately. So I reread Iron Man Extremis, and that's pretty good. It's pretty solid. But I've also been working my way through Armor Wars, which I think I read as a kid, but like I didn't remember. It's kind of like fuzzy. So reading that again is really interesting. I think out of a lot of stories back then, or like a lot of stories where Tony Stark's identity as Iron Man isn't known, in Armor Wars, it just makes for a very clunky plot thing. Maybe it's like in hindsight, like you're looking, it's like, man, it really makes way more sense for Tony to reveal his identity. But like in Armor Wars, there's so much weird explaining that they do to be like, well, I'm actually over here hiding in a van and my friend is Iron Man. Don't worry about him. It's so funny to see them do that. And I like miss that stuff. So that's been really good. And then Extremis is just cool. It's like Iron Man 3, the movie, but without all of the like extra stuff. And yeah.
I'm actually reading Last Ronin for the first time, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, I have it downstairs. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
Since when they announced the game, I'm like, I should catch up on that, and I did, and I bought it. Well, I only just started reading it. I'm like two volumes in now. Extremely cool, very cool. I love it.
Such a good idea.
It's on my to read list.
Yeah.
I went and saw Challenges.
Yes, I have many questions. Is it good?
Yes.
It is.
I'm so caught off guard by people liking it. I
didn't think much of the trailer originally when it first came out. I was like, oh, I don't understand what this is. I didn't realize until recently that it's written by the potion seller. That guy who made the potion seller. Give me your strongest potions. I'm going into battle. That
guy wrote that movie?
That guy wrote it. And he's married to the woman who wrote Past Lives.
What the hell?
Wow, okay.
So,
all right. Interesting.
Dying to know who the third person is. Anyway. Love triangle movie centered around tennis. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did the score. I got to mention it. You know what? I'm just going to say it. I think it's their best score they've ever done.
Whoa,
it goes so hard.
Coming from you.
Yeah.
I know.
Holy shit.
I genuinely think it's some of their best work as like people, as those who score movies. Like it is, when it first kicks in when you're watching this tennis match, and it's just like, oh my God. It's like, I had a friend of mine, Joey from Kind of Funny, texted me and she was like, yo, this score rocks. Can you give me Nine Inch Nails songs that sound like this? And I was like, you will regret asking me that question. And it's just like, in terms of performances, because it follows, they're all involved in tennis. There's Zendaya, there's Mike Feist and Josh O'Connor. I didn't know those guys, but they're basically all exceptionally good at tennis. And that's how they all, they meet at like the Junior US Open. And Zendaya's character is like a prodigy, basically. And then they are both so into her, obviously. And then it's just how they kind of intertwine in each other's lives up until, so they're about 18 or maybe a little younger at that point, up until, they are in their 30 plus. And there are points, yes, it's horny, but not all the way through. There is just some scenes where the sexual tension is just kind of out of control. But then it's the way that the tennis is shot. And I say this as someone who used to like genuinely love tennis, that I was really worried about how it would translate to people who didn't. And I was with a friend of mine who did not play tennis, did not understand it. And she was just like as riveted as I was. So obviously they did a really great job with the music, with the acting, like everyone is on form. It's just really good. I had a great time watching it.
What?
I'll never look at a churro the same way again.
I've heard about that. What is it like? Is it a drama? Is it like, what's the core of the film?
So the core of the film is one of the guys is a professional tennis player, but he's had an injury, he's recovered, and yes, he's got really famous and popular, but his confidence is shot. So he gets entered into this kind of lower stakes competition to get his confidence back. The other guy went pro very early, but like never really made anything of himself. Wasn't consistent, like never made it, never got those big sponsorships, down on his luck. And then Zendaya is like the boss bitch coach of the pro. But they all had this like entanglement, and like both of the guys are in love with her. And it's about this competition, this challenges, the challenger meet, and them kind of reconnecting at this later point in their lives. And there's a lot of tennis in it for sure. But it's also, it's just the way that the kind of like tennis is spoken about, not just as a sport, but as a connection between people, which is obviously like the metaphor for the connection between the three of them. And yeah, I don't want to say too much more.
I appreciate that. I keep seeing people say it's like the best sport movie ever, and I was like, Raging Bull, like it's the best, but I guess because I'm dismissing it as love triangle smut, But it's
definitely
a lot
more
more than that.
drama. It's drama, but then the way that the scenes with the sexual tension are shot, it's just like, wow, everyone is so hot. Like they're just shot in such a way. Like if Zendaya ever looked at me like that, this is my Letterboxd review. It's like if Zendaya ever looked at me like she looks at any of those guys, I would just simply burst into tears. Like she's just like, she's so commanding of every scene that she's in, even when she's playing the 18-year-old versus when she's playing like the 30-odd-year-old. It's like, yeah, dude, I fell in love with her. So, you know,
I'm gonna start taking up tennis.
Yeah. I was kind of funny today, and Blessing and I were like, should we play tennis? I think we might try pickleball. But anyway, yeah, no, it was just great. I mean, I don't know if I would go as far as say like the greatest sports movie ever made, or anything like that. But just like, yeah, it's a fun movie.
Definitely I'm seeing it this weekend. Yeah. I'm excited.
Have any of you seen Civil War?
No,
yeah.
No.
I do want to see that.
The real world's a little too.
That's right. You're home, Alanah. You're with friends here.
I can't decide between seeing Civil War challenges this weekend. I'm like, yes, I got to pick one. I can't spend that much time in a theater. Which one should I? I don't know, because I feel like people are really liking Civil War.
I wanted to say it sounds good. I mean, I've heard good things, so yeah, I'd be down for it.
Real world is a little too.
Yeah, we don't need that.
No,
we've got enough of that.
I'll just watch my tennis film.
Or you could see The Mummy for its 25th anniversary.
Jake, I did.
Sold. Did you?
Excellent.
I saw it the weekend. It was. I've never seen it in the theater before, and it was.
That's cool.
Does that movie hold up?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh,
I haven't seen it in a long time.
No.
Oh,
so
man.
genuinely, as I was watching it, I was like, wow. They the way they see things, the character motivations, like it is just a really well plotted action movie. It's great.
What year did it come out?
Like they used to.
99.
It's 99.
The CG holds up better in The Mummy 1 rather than The Mummy 2.
Absolutely. They overdid it in the second one.
Yeah, they really reached
good.
too much though. So yeah, you can understand how that happens. So
also just like everyone's hot. Like,
everyone's hot. Everyone's at the top of their game.
Imhotep is hot. Yeah.
When he does the big mouth thing.
Love that.
When his mouth go big.
We say, boy, what that mouth do. and he
shows
us.
Where he comes out and he's just like wearing his little pants loincloth thing, and he's got like this cape, and his arms are outstretched, and I was like, damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Lucy's had a very horny movie going week, and we love that for her.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, on
that note.
Got them all.
Thank you everyone for watching or listening to this week's episode of the Friends Per Second podcast. You can find me on Twitter at @LeastJamesGames. Alanah, thank you so much for joining us. Where can we find you?
Yeah.
I'm on the internet at Charizard. It's my name in the middle of Charizard.
Hell yeah. Ralph?
I'm here, right here, baby. Right here, right now. All the time. Every day.
That's too much. You should go outside.
Day.
Don't you have a family? He hasn't seen his family in
telling
months.
me, Alanah. You are telling me.
And Jake, where can people find you? And then take us home.
I'm also here. I like the podcast. So I'll pimp that. Check out this podcast, everybody. It's a good one.
The podcast
in my opinion. In my humble opinion. Yeah, this one right here.
Okay, yeah.
This shit right here. But you can find me on youtube.com/Jake Baldino. Also Instagram. I don't post a lot because my life is normal and there's nothing interesting to post. But I'm on there and I share memes. So,
share good memes.
Thank you. Yeah. You liked my one the other day with the funny horse about the coffee.
Oh, I reshared that one. That was really good.
Yeah, I was like, she got that from me. Cool.
Hell yeah, I did.
Anyway, yeah, that brings us to another episode. This has been the Friends Per Second podcast. Go watch The Mummy if you've never seen it, and then tie your shoes and go to bed.
And don't watch Tree of Life. We think.